Hello and welcome to the Never Ending Podcast, a podcast where we review movies from our youth for 70,000 hours. This week we're taking a look at Spider-Man 3. I hope you are sat comfortably, have access to drinks. I'm joking. I genuinely hope this one is quicker. But we've had bad luck these last two Spider-Man ones. We've gotten a bit in the weeds, and they've ended up being longer than we anticipated. I have no idea to their quality, and if I'm being honest with you, I lived them. I won't be reliving them in their entirety when I edit them. So it's
always the curse to say this, but I genuinely, come on, we can't do it again. We've got to be under 3 hours this time. And also, I genuinely have less to say about this movie, I think.
It's not that I have less to say about this movie. I'll tell you what it is about this movie, Chris. It's that everything I have to say about this movie comes back to one point. And I think, for listeners, as a pre-warning now, when we sit down and talk about Spider-Man 3, which is what we're about to do, there are going to be points when you are going to be frustrated that we are once again making the same point. But what's going to happen is I'm going to be talking about a completely unrelated element, and I'm going to say, yeah, but the reason it's like that is because of this thing. And it's going to keep coming back to that one point, because that is the problem with this movie. And you're all thinking it. I'm not even going to say it now, because you all know. Everyone who's seen this movie, who's listening to this, knows exactly what the problem with this movie is. And I think while we will go into the details...
Is it that they've tried to cram too much in, Dan?
Oh, it might be, yeah. It starts with over and ends in stuffed. I think, no matter what you come across that's a problem in this movie, it would have been solved with more breathing room, more time, less going on. Almost everything. Because none of the ideas in this movie are inherently bad. With one tiny exception, actually. One tiny exception. Because there is one thing that I just think is outright just the wrong choice, but that's a different issue. But otherwise, it all comes back to how overstuffed the movie is. So I think, hopefully, as a result of that, it'll actually speed the process up, just on the grounds that, we're not going to want to repeat ourselves for 3 hours. So should we do history with the film, Chris, first? Did you see this one in the cinemas?
Well, here's one way in which we can save time. I haven't seen it. So I had never seen this movie until I watched it as part of a rewatch ahead of No Way Home. So I knew it was very infamous. I knew it was overstuffed. I knew it wasn't very popular. I knew the dance. I think I'd probably seen the clip of the dance and the hair and all that shit. So sort of I knew of it pop culturally, but I'd never actually watched the movie until a No Way Home influenced rewatch. And watched it and obviously went in with the reputation. Yeah. So I kind of watched it and went, oh, it's the worst, but I don't remember. I don't know. I do remember thinking it was bad. I'm trying to think how I felt about the rewatch, not obviously this watch of it. I think I remember thinking it probably deserved its reputation. I remember thinking this, yeah. I remember thinking it deserved its reputation among Spider-Man movies, but it was by some way not the worst comic book movie or superhero movie I'd ever seen, which I would probably stand by. I saw X-Men Apocalypse at the cinema. This is worse. This is better than X-Men Apocalypse.
Right. Yeah. I think, that is an interesting point, because I do think this movie does suffer by comparison to some degree, and I think there's a lot more good in this movie than it often gets credit for, but I think fundamentally the things that are good are only good in isolation, and as a package, this movie is very poor. I could think of moments, scenes, things I like, and even things other people don't like that this movie gets hate for, I fucking love. There's tons to like about this movie in isolation, but again, none of it actually works as a package. And whereas something like X-Men Apocalypse or The Last Stand, or some of the other movies, like fucking that Elektra movie they did, there's a lot of shit.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, well, those Fantastic Four ones, the Jessica Alba, what's his face ones, the guy.
Well,
Shield.
I meant Fan Four Stick, that one.
Oh, Fan Four Stick. Well, now Fan Four Stick, I really want to do on this podcast at some point, because my long-held belief is, and I don't think Josh Trank is right when he says there's a masterpiece on a cutting room floor somewhere, but I do think there's a coherent, reasonably entertaining body horror slash superhero movie on the cutting room floor that would have been better received than the version we got, which they panicked about his version and then course corrected. I think while it wouldn't have felt much like a Fantastic Four movie, there would have been something quite watchable and maybe entertaining in its own right in his version of the Fantastic Four, because again, I saw scenes in that movie, I was like, that's badass. Why is there not more of this in the movie? And the answer is they cut around it because they were terrified of what he'd made. But anyway, that's a different story.
I'll tell you what, because we've done tentpoles here, and obviously there are others we could name like Madam Web, etc. But
sure.
even moving into the MCU, I watched this movie last night.
Yes.
If you were to say to me right now, would you rather rewatch that again or watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? And I hate to say Eternals, because I respect what Eternals was trying to do, but I would choose to watch this movie again after over watching both of those movies right now. So yeah.
So I go on, sorry. Finish the thought. I don't mean to interrupt.
Well, I want to know. Do you agree? I want to know specifically about those two movies. What would you choose? You got a choice, and I'll throw in Love and Thunder as well.
Probably Eternals.
Right, okay, yeah. Fair
I really enjoyed Eternals. I accept Eternals is flawed, and I accept Eternals is very far tonally from a superhero movie, and it's closer to a Game of Thrones episode. And mileage will vary with that because that's such a specific thing. It's either going to be up your street or it's not. And I think one of the things that's funny about superhero movies is because they've become the ubiquitous form of blockbuster entertainment for the last 20 years, people forget that the subgenre ones can just be for some people. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're watching Spider Noir at the moment for our other podcast for listeners. I'm on a very Spider-Man heavy couple of weeks. I've got one episode left. I'm very much enjoying it, but I'm watching that well aware that is not going to work for everyone because it's so within its genre. And I think that's true of Eternals too. I think Eternals is a very specific kind of movie, and if that's just not a genre you're into, it's unusual for that genre to clash with a superhero movie. It's a slow, ponderous character piece. It does have too many characters in it, I would say also, though. That is a problem. Like, it's not a perfect movie, but I think I would watch it over watching this again. By the end of this movie, okay, I'll tell you something I said, and this is said in jest for those listening, but I said, the credits hit, and I said, oh, for fuck's sake, have I not suffered enough? Now I've got to listen to fucking Snow Patrol.
Whoa. Back off. Did you not watch the video I sent you?
What video you sent me? Which video? Oh, the music video for this song.
I sent you the...
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. It's a good video. Look,
yeah,
here's my thing.
It's a good song.
Here's the thing, right? I am a big fan of one Snow Patrol album. And
Final Straw?
I guess it was the one with was it? Oh wait, I'm just gonna pull it up. I think it's Final Straw.
It'll be Final Straw.
I think it will be. Let's see. What's on that one? Yeah, the one with Spitting Games on it. Yeah, great album. Absolutely great album. Yeah. I've not much cared for anything they've done since. But anyway, my point is, there's one or two good songs I've heard, but like nothing. I've not been a big fan of theirs since that album, basically. But my point was, I was so frustrated by the end of this movie because there are so many good ideas wasted that I would watch Eternals over this because it's just a much more coherent piece of cinema, and then this, and then what was the other option? What was the third choice?
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, that's at the very bottom because that is just a soulless husk of nothing. So yeah, that Ant-Man and the Wasp just absolute the floor. Could not go any lower. Then this, frustrating because it has a lot of good ideas not executed, and then I'm watching Eternals is the one I would choose first because I think that is again like good ideas reasonably well executed, not perfect but very quite entertaining. So yeah, that's where I would stand. But anyway, my point is, I don't care for this film, and I'll tell you, my first viewing of this film was very mixed. So if we're going to do history quickly of mine, this movie was my most anticipated movie for many years because. Big old Spider-Man fan for a long time. We talked about this in the previous movies, but my favorite Spider-Man villain was, and probably still is if I really thought about it, Venom. I could not wait for Venom to be included in one of these movies. Seeing Venom on the big screen was like the top of my wish list. And when that San Diego Comic-Con trailer dropped, in, at the time, phone recorded, like, I could see 2 pixels. I think there's a Venom in there somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it leaked from Comic-Con, unfinished, bad quality. They hadn't even finished the special effects. That version doesn't look like the version in the movie, but the trailer, it's a little teaser trailer that ends with Eddie Brock on the floor of the church and then looking up and diving at the camera as Venom. And I lost my fucking mind. Because the first 2 had been good, and Venom's my favourite villain. And the excitement I felt for just seeing Venom on screen, seeing Venom realised, just palpable. Like, I cannot tell you how excited I was for this movie. In the end, I funnily enough, through a complete coincidence, I ended up getting a refund for this movie the first time I saw it, but not because of the quality. So basically, the first time I saw it, there was a technical problem where there was like a bit of fluff or something stuck to the lens of the projector. So like on the right, bottom right corner of the screen, there was like this flickering the whole movie. And it wasn't the end of the world. I still watched and enjoyed the movie as much as you can with this movie. But me and my friends who I saw it with, who were two of my housemates from my first year of uni, we sort of like went down and were like, there was a problem with the projector, and they were just like, yeah, whatever, have some free tickets, like get a refund or whatever. They just shut us up. They didn't even question us. They didn't ask for more information. They just looked at us and went, yeah, whatever, take your money back. So then I went back and saw it again a few weeks later with Nadia. And the reason I hadn't waited to watch it with her, because we were living separately at the time, because she was at uni in a different city to me. So I could have waited to watch it with her, but I wasn't going to do that. I watched it opening weekend, basically opening night. The feelings were so mixed because I was so excited to see Venom, even just visually on screen. I think in some ways I tricked myself into thinking the movie was better than it was. And then it slowly sank in between the first viewing and the viewing where I went with Nadia that the movie wasn't very good and that I'd been a bit...
Yeah, but the problem as we've already indicated, and we're going into, like, I think we probably would recommend this movie if you've seen the first. I probably would say, watch that as well to sort of complete the trilogy and see the end of the arcs and stuff like that. But as you said, and we're gonna, apologies because we are going to repeat ourselves a lot. The problem, I can see why you tricked your brain, because the problem is actually every individual idea, if it had the time to be expanded on, because it wasn't stuffed in with a million other ideas, is a good idea. And there's also some quite beautiful stuff in there. The Sandman sequences. Yeah. Fuck me, the Sandman visuals still hold up. Fantastic.
Before we get into that, I was just going to quickly cap it off. The funny thing that happened was I acquired a pirated copy of the movie between watching it the first time and watching it a few weeks later with Nadia, just so I could re-watch the Venom scenes. And one thing I did realise was that wasn't really Venom in any way, shape or form, in his behaviour and his approach. And actually, while I love this portrayal of Eddie Brock, which is sort of an amalgam of several versions of Eddie Brock we've had in the comics and TV shows over the years, the Venom part is just an utter failure. Like, I was very taken by the visuals. I think this Venom is visually interesting, which I was excited to just physically see how that would look on screen. This amorphous black goo or whatever. But I downloaded this pirated copy and I rewatched the Venom scenes over and over again as a big sad Venom nerd. And I just couldn't... the more I did it, the more I realised how much this film got the character of Venom specifically, not Eddie Brock, wrong. And made him this weird animalistic thing. And also, the reason I was aching to look at those shots again was because he's barely visible in the movie. Most of the time you see him, he's leaping around or whatever because they're trying to hide the visual effect. And then when he does stay still, the face peels back and he's Eddie again. And it's like, oh, come on. And that's why I was so, that's the slow realization of my true feelings of this movie happened between my first proper paid-for screening and my second one, which... I say paid for, actually I got a refund, but you know what I mean. And my second rewatch with Nadia, because I had that pirated copy just to look at those scenes again, and I was like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And realizing that was heartbreaking, and then the final confirmation being seeing it in a much less excited, nostalgic for Venom, fanboy place a few weeks later with a more rational head. And just realizing what a mess the movie was really, really frustrating, and I felt that frustration again on the rewatch. But that's my sort of history with this film. Is clouded initially by excitement to realization of what this film was in the space of what it was like 2 or 3 weeks. Not fun.
Would you recommend it?
No, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. It's not,
really?
Not worth it. It's not worth it. Nothing gets paid off. You will be much more satisfied just watching the first 2 and stopping. Because the only dangling thread is Harry. Everything else is wrapped up. Everything else is wrapped up.
Yeah.
Why would you put yourself through this? This is a terrible fucking movie. I think the thing is, I will say...
Sorry, I got distracted there because my daughter was banging at the door and saying, "Dada," and my wife is trying to explain to her what a podcast is. That's just...
I love it when people do that. You know, when people anthropomorphize, like either someone who's too young to like talk, and they talk to them like they would understand, and they get frustrated when they don't. It's like, well, they're a child, they won't. But it also reminds me, I saw someone do the exact same thing, and I'm not equating a child to a pet, but I saw a guy the other day. It was a video, and it was his dog is lying in the garden, and he just sort of forgets that the dog can't understand English, I guess, and he's like, "Oh, there's a snake." He's like, I can't remember the dog's name, but he's like, "Fido, there's a snake. Turn around, there's a snake." And the dog's just lying there because the dog doesn't understand fucking English, you idiot. So like, he has to like get up and like shove the dog out of the way of the snake. And he's getting frustrated with the dog. He's like, "I told you there's a snake." And I'm like, "He doesn't understand you." But yeah, no, getting back to the movie, I don't recommend it because I just don't think this movie is worth it. I just don't. To get us back on track.
I think there's enough fun moments, and you can watch it in a kind of fucking what is this? Like there's so much going on. I don't think you're ever really bored, and I know that's a low bar, and I wouldn't normally like if this movie wasn't
Third act.
Say again.
Third act is very boring.
Yeah. The Peter fucking the emo Peter stuff goes on a bit too long. But I wouldn't if it was just a singular movie. Of course, I wouldn't be like, watch it. But in a world where you've watched the first 2, and you're like, should I fling on the third one? I think it's a fun enough sort of exercise to recommend it. So I'm going to contradict. I'm going to say I would recommend this movie.
Yeah, one of the rare occasions that we've disagreed on. Do you recommend, not recommend? It doesn't happen often. But yeah, no, I mean, I accept what you're saying because look, we're going to talk about this movie in more detail in a second, and there are plenty of scenes I'm going to tell you, dear listener, are amazing. Truly amazing. Sandman reforming, almost all the emo Peter stuff is just glorious to watch, and we'll talk about why later. It's one of my more controversial opinions on this movie. It's the best thing in the movie. We'll talk about why in a minute. The visual of Venom is cool. The special effects are cool. Some of the action's amazing. I think some of the story choices are quite interesting in of themselves if they don't get explored. I'm not even against the changes to the backstory, which some people really hate. There's a bunch of stuff in this movie I'm going to tell you I like. And I think that's going to be very confusing considering I said I don't recommend it. But the package, the overall experience of watching this movie is one of frustration. It is infuriating to watch the quality fall to this point and the characters to be making these decisions and things to be happening so just out of nowhere. Just like, that problem's resolved. Why? Because the movie said so. Like all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's
why did the movie did the movie run out of time? Because it overstuffed it. Again, it's all going to come back to that. But the ending of the movie particularly is so fucking bad. So painful. The lack of closure, the lack of a satisfying ending. It's just like, I just don't know why you'd put yourself through that. A bunch of ideas that don't go anywhere or don't get explored because there's too much in the movie, when you could just watch the second one and have a really satisfying experience that ends with he's Spider-Manning, he's with Mary Jane, he's put his life together, but, the adventure goes on, there's still villains out there, Harry's still out there. That's interesting enough to I think that's a better place to end it than where this ends, which is just like, after all of their problems that have been reasonably well explored throughout this movie, they're just back together. Why? Because the movie's finishing in a minute. That is throw your drink at the screen frustrating. And I just can't, I couldn't in good conscience put someone through that. So yeah, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Well, I don't think anything, we'll talk about it more, but I think you could apply that to anything about the ending. I was so infuriated. So we don't I genuinely think worse than, because I You can, if you. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think you could construct an argument for Peter and Mary Jane, which is, a big part. She only broke up with him because of Harry, so she, that would have been explained and all that sort of stuff. You can make an argument. She didn't
only break up with him with Harry though, because the movie's so muddled and confused. The movie puts her in a place where she's on the verge of breaking up with him, and then has Harry force her to do it, which just makes the whole thing muddled and weird, and you don't know where they're up to. Awful.
I'm not saying it's a robust argument. I'm saying you could create one. I think the Sandman lack of conclusion is the way more inexcusable to me. Like we don't know if his daughter got her operation, dude. We don't know if he's on the a bunch of sand flies off. Like we don't what like that for me is worse than the Peter Mary Jane of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just that the very last shot of the movie is them resolving that. But even that, I'll tell you the slight difference, and it is only slight. The reason that I focused, I guess, on the Peter Mary Jane one is the Sandman stuff was set up in this movie, and at least he has a conversation with Sandman that ends with the "I forgive you" line, which not great, but does wrap up at least Peter's relationship with that character. Whereas just MJ and Peter, without exchanging a conversation, just they're back together now. They kiss. End of movie. Just fuck you, movie. Like after all you put them through, they don't even talk through their issues. Peter was a real piece of shit for a lot of this movie, and not all of it was when he had an alien messing with his brain. So can we address that? He didn't have an alien messing in with his brain when he kissed Gwen, did he? When he was ignoring that she was having troubles. Part of me goes MJ can't be too mad at him about like not being there for her. She never told him what her actual problem was. She never told him that she'd been fired. But I'm looking at it going, yeah, but why didn't she tell him? Because he'd make it about him instantly. Well, there was a time when I was Spider-Man and I was sad and down in the dumps, and he would immediately make it about him again, which is what he does all the beginning of the movie. There's a reason she doesn't tell him, and it's easy watching this movie at a glance to go well, MJ was kind of in the wrong for being mad at him for not understanding her feelings when she hasn't told him what her problem is, the firing. But the beginning of the movie demonstrates that he doesn't listen to her anyway. He doesn't listen.
Like you say, I can understand that argument, but I think that would be mad because he's such a knob. Not just to Mary Jane, but just in general. He's such an unlikable character in this movie.
Yeah, and not just when he gets the alien. Not just when the alien fucks with his brain.
When he's like, it's the bit where he's like, man, they really love me. Oh, Pete. So, yeah, no, I completely agree. Look, Mary Jane is well within her rights. And yes, but I guess because the difference for me is, and it's the wrong thing to apply because it's not in the text of the film, but the reason their ending bothers me less than Sandman's is because it's like, well, we've seen their journey for 3 movies. We know that they do love each other, but et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, which is fair enough.
But yeah, all of it needs more. Harry needs more. Sandman needs more.
But just where everyone is left off is worse than where they were left off in the second movie. They backpedal on Aunt May stuff. They backpedal on Peter's character growth and make him a real fucking arsehole throughout this entire movie. The relationship I invested the entire last movie in is just destroyed in this one, and you just go, I don't know why she's with him. That Harry stuff is a mess, awfully handled. They introduce Sam but don't do anything with him. I just can't imagine a less satisfying conclusion to this trilogy. And look, there's another reality out there where Sam Raimi does go on to make the 4th one, and he was absolutely determined to make up for. He hates this movie. Well, we're going to talk about that later in the trivia, but Sam Raimi knows this movie is. Sorry, Raimi. He knows this movie is shit, and he says so himself. He has described it on multiple occasions as awful. So, he knows he let people down here, and he was really hyper-focused on his 4th movie that he was developing before it all fell apart, to make up for that and to leave on a good note. He really wanted to do right by the fans for that 4th one because he understands. But in the current state of it, it's just kind of crazy to me that this is how it ends, and it's just what a mess. Just what a mess. Top to bottom. That again, tons of stuff individually I love, but my God, as a package, dear fucking Lord. So let's break it down, Chris. Where do we want to start? Where do we want to start when we're getting into the nitty-gritty? Do we start with how they fucked up Venom?
I think we kind of yes, but I think we have to just kind of clarify whether there's anything else we've got to say about the end, because we've said so much about the end already.
Well, I figure we'll be talking about the ending in different bits when we talk about the various storylines, right? Because if we're going to talk about Venom, we're talking about the end by talking about Venom, because Venom is mostly featured in the end. But,
Well, look, Venom, I think I'm right in saying there'll be more on the Triv, but I am right in saying that Venom in particular is the thing that was forced upon Sam Raimi.
Correct.
Raimi, yeah?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
And you can tell.
Yes, you can.
And bless him, because he tried. Because clearly, if the movie was about, Peter getting in his own way or whatever, like, bless him for going, okay, well, why don't we do this kind of black suit thing? Like, I can see the logic. I really can. You can feel him. You can feel the creatives doing their best here. But yes, the Venom stuff is not. It's not great. I mean, I assume the real fuck up is Venom doesn't work like that in terms of taking over the spider suit and all of that sort of stuff.
No, that stuff's fine. I think. I mean. It is a bit odd because he's sort of his own suit in the original one, but like I don't mind that the symbiote blends with the suit and becomes like does it that way. Any changes to like the physical lore, I don't really mind. The big change that bothers me is that the Venom symbiote, it becomes clear. It starts off as Peter doesn't know it's alive, right, or sentient. He just thinks he's got more powers when he's fused with it, right? So he uses it, but he starts acting more aggressively. He starts making choices he wouldn't make. Starts getting cockier. Starts getting more arrogant. Starts treating his friends badly, nearly kills certain villains. Like it starts to corrupt him. And by the time he realizes it's the symbiote corrupting him, it becomes clear it's really got a mind of its own. And there's an element of whispering in your ear. It's sentient in a way this movie does not properly characterize. And by the time it reaches Eddie Brock, and this is all out in the open, Venom is not just Eddie Brock with a power suit. Venom is a fusion of the alien and its intelligence and the hatred of Eddie Brock. And it hates Spider-Man too because he rejected it. One of the cool things that happens in the comic and in the 90s animated show, actually, is when Spider-Man is trying to reason with Eddie Brock / Venom, he tries to point out that it doesn't actually care for Eddie Brock. It just wants a host. It wants a body it can control. And the way he does that is he says, okay, I agree. You can come back to me. I've got more power than Eddie. And immediately the Venom symbiote abandons Eddie to come back to Peter. And it's a trick. Peter is tricking the symbiote and proving to Eddie that it doesn't have any powers. It's a being, is my point. And what this movie does is it makes it a weird power suit for Eddie Brock. And then when he goes like full mask Venom, he's just sort of like a wild animal. It's like the alien from Aliens, like it's the xenomorph, rather than a creature with characteristics and opinions and feelings of its own, which is what the Tom Hardy Venom movies truly understood, and they gave him a literal voice, like he talks to Tom Hardy in those movies, which is something they did in the comics in the end, eventually, when they developed the character enough anyway. Eventually Venom does talk to whoever he's hosting. He's like whispering in your ear. He's like the devil on your shoulder. And I just think it's a problem of characterization, because I like the idea of the suit corrupting somebody and then ending up on a really shitty person, like an Eddie Brock, and just enhancing an already awful person. That is a really good idea. And this whole, that when they talk, they refer to themselves as we, because they are truly fused. Their minds are one. And I just feel like they just don't do that here. And to me, that's just no longer interesting. Giving Eddie Brock the ability to punch Spider-Man isn't anywhere near as interesting as truly developing this manipulative creature that fuses with you and brings out your worst tendencies. And while the movie sort of in dialogue explains that, once it's on Eddie Brock, it just doesn't really work anymore. It works better earlier in the movie when they're doing that with Spider-Man. It is enhancing his worst characteristics, and that is true to the comic. But as soon as it lands on Eddie, it's just like he's just shitty Eddie but with powers now. Like, I don't know, it doesn't really function as Venom at all, and that's...
So do you think part of the problem there then is actually not how they handled Venom, but how they handled Eddie? Because Eddie is such a prick. There's no Venom enhancing the worst characteristics of Eddie, because in this movie, Eddie is just already the worst. Like,
there's a truth. There is some truth to
not
that.
caring about. not caring about Gwen being in danger, going to a church and you think, oh, okay, is this his redemption? Like he's hit his low, and then he like literally prays for someone to kill Peter Parker.
Yeah,
like he's a knob.
Yeah. Oh, he's the worst.
And also, like he's upset and blaming Peter Parker for something he did. He got caught. Like
precisely. Yeah. He is the worst. I'll be honest with you, and this is going to be take a shot, everyone, because this is the first of many. But I actually think this problem comes back to overstuffed, because what I think they should have done in a better world I wouldn't change this Eddie. I love Topher Grace in this movie. I love this interpretation of Eddie. I love how much you hate him. It's fucking brilliant. And then the final cherry on top is the praying to God to kill Peter Parker. It's glorious, because then you go like, he's such a shitter. How does that suit make him worse? There's a tension to that. What I think should have happened in a world where we were being smarter about this is Venom isn't in this movie as such. The black suit is. And it ends with Peter getting rid of the black suit, having nearly... So instead of having him, accidentally smack MJ and realize the suit's evil, have him nearly kill Sandman, but then the power of his memories of Uncle Ben and the messages and the things he's learned make him realize that that's not what he should do. And he stops, he forgives Sandman, he's still wearing the black suit. And then the movie ends with him going to the church, losing the suit, creating Venom. And that's our tease for our next movie. And in the next movie, we can explore that, because Eddie is still around as Eddie. Peter doesn't know he's acquired the symbiote. He thinks he's defeated it. And Eddie and the symbiote together start fucking with his life in different ways. Their revenge tour starts. And the next movie is purely about Eddie/Venom's revenge tour, culminating in that fight with a properly fleshed out Venom, where we have Eddie and we can hear the voice in his head that's coming from that symbiote. That's what you actually should have done in this movie, is like introduce the black suit, because the black suit does connect nicely to the story in this movie of Peter. The idea, at least, that's in this movie, whether it's executed or not is a different question. But the idea in this movie is Peter realizing that like it's not black and white. There's not just heroes and villains. There are shades. Flint Marko robbed money, but wasn't intending to hurt anyone. He was stealing money to save his daughter's life. The shot fired as an accident. He was ultimately a good person making a bad choice. And Peter in this movie, also tempted by the symbiote, good person making a bad choice, showing us there are shades of grey. Peter learning that with the black suit is actually pretty good. Like, it's a really good use of the black suit. And then end by creating Venom. Because, I remember I was convinced when they were marketing this movie originally, or they were starting to talk about this movie, I was convinced this movie was going to have the black suit in it. But I thought the last shot of the movie is Venom leaping at the camera. I remember, I think there are forum posts somewhere on the Internet Archive from me in 2005, 2006, predicting that's how this movie would end. I was convinced of it. And to this day, I think that's actually the right move, because you get to be introduced shitty Eddie in this movie and then have Venom in the Revenge Tour as the sequel. And it would have been so much better, because then you can flesh all that out.
Flesh all that out and not do really forced things like the moment Eddie, despite having no indication that he's aware of Sandman or looking into Sandman or anything like that. The moment Eddie's like, I know all about you, Sandman. Let's work together.
No one else can find you, but I've tracked you down immediately for convenience, and we're now going to go do a plan. Fuck me. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Look, it all comes back to that. So I sort of understand what you're saying about the Eddie thing, and definitely the comic versions of Eddie. He's never cool. I mean, I'd have to go back and check, but I think I agree with you. This Eddie is dialed up in his douchebaggery for sure, and his piece of shittiness. Like, he's just the worst.
Well, I don't know for sure if he's dialed up, because I don't have the comic.
No, but I agree with. I suppose, yeah. What I should clarify that is, I agree with your assertion that does impact how we then view Venom, because obviously he's so bad. But I think you could have smoothed that out with more time exploring Venom and showing how much worse he is and how much scarier that is. Like, the idea that we've had this character that we've witnessed through this movie who's just been awful and awful and awful, and at the end of the movie we see him get powers. And you go, oh, fuck, what is that? Like, that the tension of that cliffhanger. You know what I mean? The reveal of a Venom and oh my, what's that going to be like in the next movie? So that's what they should have done, I think. But Hey, that's not the reality we live in. We ended up with this movie.
Well,
So yeah, I've got a lot of problems with it.
Especially if Eddie has been a thorn in Peter's side the entire movie, and you even still do Peter, screwing him over, and then you're like,
course.
oh, this guy's out for revenge. I do think the look. Well, to be honest with you, I don't really think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't. Oh no, I do. I don't think there's any particularly bad special effects in this movie. I think there's sequences that there's too much going on, like the first Green Goblin Spider-Man fight being the biggest example of that. You can barely fucking follow what's happening in that. It's ridiculous. The fight where they go through the houses and stuff like that. But to stay on Venom specifically, I do think the visuals of Venom, from the black suit, from the Venom overtaking both of them, to the screech as Peter's trying to drag it off. I do think Venom, and even actually like when Venom becomes classic Venom on Eddie, I think the look is good as well. Like, I think the look of all the Venom stuff works really nicely, and the effects of all the Venom stuff works really nicely. But again, I would say that.
Yeah,
I would say that about the special effects in general in this movie. I just think some of the sequences, in particular that Green Goblin one, and there's one later on. I think maybe the one involving. Oh, the one at the end where it's two on two is also overstuffed and just ridiculous.
Yeah. But I think to tag on to that Venom visual point, I think you're right. This is a really good look for Venom. It's just a shame that they hid it so much behind him pulling the face back and being Eddie, because again, it's like, where's the Venom character in this movie? You've introduced Eddie Brock and you've given him powers. It's not the same. And actually that is one of the reasons it looks good, is because they didn't overdo it, which I appreciate. It's the Jaws thing. If you don't see the shark, it's scarier, I suppose. But also, is it Venom if he's never Venom? Like, if he's only Venom in these brief moments, and when he is being Venom, he's screeching away like he's a fucking animal instead of like an intelligent being. It's just, I don't know, man. That's the problem. But visually, you're right. It's a really good interpretation, because it's an interpretation that lines up with what they've done with the Spider-Man suit visually, and that I really like. He has the raised webbing and like all that stuff. Like, he's stolen elements of Spider-Man's costume, which is what happens in the comics. Venom has a spider on his chest because it was on Peter first, and Venom's eyes are the shape they are because they're mimicking Spider-Man's eyes. That's the reason he looks like he looks, in the original interpretation of the character, the Todd McFarlane run. But like, yeah, I just think characteristically it's wrong. He's just a weird, vicious animal. But yeah, I like it because it is, if the alien was simulating or recreating the Peter Parker Spider-Man suit but black, 'cause that's his color, then yeah, fucking nailed it. Like, it's such a good look for Venom. It's really cool. Obviously, he looks more comic accurate in the Tom Hardy movies because he's obviously bulkier and like, the visuals are, but in terms of how they handled it in this franchise, considering the origins and considering the starting point of this movie Spider-Man suit, love it. Absolutely love it. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. I don't know what happened there. Something on the desk. I must have moved it, but made a screechy noise. So apologies about that. Yeah, I agree. So let's take it in turns.
One very quick last point. I completely forgot, but if I don't mention it now, I will forget. Why does Topher Grace have sharp teeth when he's Venom? That baffled me. I've never noticed that before. When he's got the full head around him, I understand why it's formed sharp teeth. But when it pulls completely back and we can see Topher Grace Eddie Brock face, his human teeth are now sharp. Did he get a file and sharpen his teeth? What happened?
Yeah, it is weird. Let's do Sandman, because I think with Sandman, unfortunately, the highlight is the visuals. In particular, the formation scene, and actually for me, like him waking up is in the sand is the thing that really gets me. I thought that looked absolutely beautiful. Him sort of waking up and discovering himself, just amazing. But the problem with the Sandman storyline is the lack of resolution, and also just the the absurdities of it, like every step of the way, like even from that amazing formation, like okay, so he's fallen in because the experiment science company that we haven't been introduced to because we haven't got the time and don't really understand the full implications of what they're doing, because we haven't got the time. They dismiss it as a bird, but presumably when the system's up and running, that guy's like, hold on, there's still something in there. The police have appeared over it and are looking into it, but there's no indication that like the area has been cordoned off or investigated or anything like that. Like you'd assume maybe the sand will have been moved or something when the police were like, we think a fucking dude just fell in there. There's no resolution on the operation for his child and whether that happens. He makes a series of bad decisions, but also like, yeah, it's clearly just falling into these things, and you know, the needless connection to the death of Uncle Ben is just shoehorned in. Like it's just not it's not smooth. It's not done well. And it's such a shame because I think it looks brilliant, and I think Thomas Hayden Church, if the movie wasn't overstuffed and he'd have had more screen time and stuff, could have really made a very compelling villain. So yeah, what's your thoughts on Sandman?
I agree with almost everything you said. The one thing I would say is I don't think that the choice to make him involved in Uncle Ben's death is needless. I think that's a really important piece of what this movie's doing. But I would say it doesn't work because they don't give it the time. All roads lead back to overstuffed. There's too much happening. We don't get enough time to explore it. But here's the thing. This movie is about Peter succumbing to darker thoughts, being imperfect. And again, I talked about that whole grey thing earlier, the black, white, and grey, this idea that he's not perfect as a hero, he can make mistakes too. Giving him the black suit and the revelation that there's another man that was involved in his uncle's death is kind of genius on paper. Having him explore, now he's got these powers, understands these powers, has been a hero, and we've given him the black suit, giving him someone to hate, truly hate, to challenge that, who's someone who maybe actually was just a decent person that made some serious mistakes instead of an outright villain, is very compelling on paper, in my opinion. And I don't even mind that change to the law in theory. What I don't like is making those changes and then failing to actually execute on it in any way that is compelling or interesting or explores the idea beyond the surface level. We get the moment where Spider-Man hits him with all the water and says, "Good riddance." And that is about it. And that is a real shame because I am convinced there's a really great Spider-Man story in this idea. Absolutely convinced of it. And they didn't get to it because there's no time. Because, now we got to do Harry, and Mary Jane's mad at him. He's kissed Gwen, and he's doing a dance, but also Harry's got amnesia, and he's back, and Aunt May's here for some reason, and we're undoing the last movie stuff with her. Okay, and then she's gone, and Peter's doing a dance again, and now MJ's been kidnapped, and it's just like the movie is just like just no time to handle it. Like, there was a point. I watched this with Nadia, and there was a point when Sandman shows up, and she went, "Oh yeah, I forgot about him because we hadn't seen him in like 40 minutes, maybe longer." And I was like, yeah, absolutely. What an absolute failure to execute. So yeah, in theory, I agree with you.
Which is insane, by the way, because
Go on.
why? Sorry to interrupt, but why did it take him so long to reform from like the wet sand? Like days go by, like, and he crawls out the sewer. Like that scene took place half an hour before we're then seeing it.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. In theory, I do agree with you. Right, in the finished movie, the Uncle Ben changes do not work. Right, they just don't. Right, it ends up feeling pointless. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that I don't think the problem is conceptually. I think the problem is execution and the lack of time to explore it. I really do believe there's a good idea in there, which is a shame. And again, one of the reasons this movie is so fucking frustrating to watch. And I'm so on board with like a lot of the ideas of this movie. Just my god. I will say though, all of his action scenes are amazing. In my opinion, I love the fight for the money at the beginning. And Spidey puts his hand through him. Even though I absolutely detest a fight that takes place in a space that just doesn't exist in the real world, which is the subway thing. Who the fuck thinks all the subway cars are all underground on bridges in a giant chasm where you can fall off one track and then another one is below you? Like, it's not the fucking conveyor belts in an airport. What the fuck kind of space is that?
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly the description I was going to use.
Fucking insane. That is not a place that exists on Earth. Let alone New York. Fuck me. Yeah. Anyway, forgetting the ridiculousness of that location, that fight is awesome. Like, Spidey shoves his head into the train car and it like breaks apart.
Oh man!
Oh, great! Absolutely brilliant. It's thrilling. It's genuinely thrilling, and the special effects are great, and you can follow it really well. And I think it's just a very compelling scene, and I'm all on board with it. Thumbs up. So the fight scenes with Sandman are all proof of concept that Sandman should have been just the main villain of this movie because everything that Sandman does physically in this movie is brilliant. All of his fights are great, particularly at the end when he just like makes himself huge, and you get that really cool moment where Harry like turns his arm to glass because heat and sand make glass, and then he fucking smashes it. Yes, please. Let's do more of that.
It's great. It's
That's
fantastic.
Awesome. But
and can you imagine? Can you imagine how strong it would have been if, like, because obviously and like you say, this is one way in which you can make the Uncle Ben stuff be executed better on screen. Like, we have here a villain who, for arguably the right reasons, has made the wrong mistakes and has acted, has got a bit of power here as well, and that's amplified those mistakes. There's so many parallels you could draw between Sandman's situation in this movie and Peter Parker's, and the notion of like Peter Parker being angry at someone for reasons that the people in his life have justification for being angry at him for as well. Like, you could have done so much with that if it was just focused and given the time. Like, it's actually a really good pairing in this movie, and thematically pairs really well, but take a shot, there's not the time to explore it.
And then there's no conclusion. So you don't explore it while it's happening, and then you don't end it properly. Like, they end it from Peter's side to some degree with that I Forgive You, which is a reasonably decent ending to his arc. I mean, in terms of this movie's version of what that is, it would have been, if it was a better written movie, it would have been much more explored than that. But Peter saying he forgives him at the end is a brilliant moment and a beautiful moment. And, I even love that shot of him just sort of flying away on the wind. Like, that's a really nice shot. In fact, while we're on the subject, you already talked about it, but I just want to give it its flowers myself. The scene where Sandman initially forms is fucking beautiful. Utterly beautiful. It's heartbreaking when he tries to pick up the locket, but he can't stay together. There's a close-up on his eyebrows, and you somehow see the sadness through the sand. Like, the way it initially forms, and it, like, arcs, and and the music. Oh, God, the music's good in that scene. It's just that scene, top to bottom, is beautiful. It does have, I think it's the, do you remember that old animated show? They might still do it, but How It Should Have Ended? They did It Should Have Ended did the brilliant thing of like the scientists, and the guy's like, there's something on, we have a reading. It's probably just a bird. And the guy goes, well, shouldn't we check before we mutate the crap out of something? And it's like, yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe you should check before you mutate the crap out of something. So yeah, I love that scene though, top to bottom. It's beautiful. His reforming is just glorious, absolutely glorious. So yeah, I don't know.
It's like I say, the actual forming is great, but for me it's him holding the close-ups of his hands against his face and stuff when he first appears is just it's beautiful, and it still holds up. Right, we've done Venom, we've done Sandman. On to my friend Green Goblin.
Well, New Goblin, his official title.
Who gets amnesia written out of a chunk of the movie.
So, can I tell you the frustration with that was? I thought on my first viewing they were doing something clever. I loved the idea that he was fucking with Peter and pretending to have amnesia. And there's a tension to the first act of this movie with Harry when he's all buddies again, because you're like, does he remember? Is this the long game? Is he fucking with him? And you just like, that's so exciting and interesting as an idea. And then there's like a moment where he's like, no, I remember now and I'm evil again. And I'm like, oh, okay, lame. And this is way worse than the thing I thought we were doing. Once again, the movie being frustrating. I mean, how do you feel about the Harry arc in general in this movie though? And how it like resolves and stuff?
I'd have preferred it if they'd have just like made up and come to forgiveness and he didn't die. I don't think spoilers. I don't think I don't think his death is the answer to the arc. But again, it's everything. If it'd been given more time, then yeah, the arc ultimately leading to him forgiving Peter is great. But unfortunately, that forgiveness comes because the butler goes, "Oh, here's some information you didn't have before," and Harry goes, "Oh, okay, cool." And we don't have the time to go, well, okay, why didn't I know this? Or Peter, reflect on how they've been with each other, because Peter's still, you could still make an argument, even if that's the case, he still could have told him the truth. There's still an awful lot to mine there. It is not, oh, okay, it was his own hand, cool, and move on.
But also, that doesn't make sense, can I just say? Can I just point out that doesn't make any sense? I inspected the wounds myself. They were from his own glider. He died at his own hands. How does it being from his glider mean he died at his own hands with certainty? We proved in this movie the villain can pick up the glider and stab you with it, because Venom does that to Harry. So I don't know why this guy has such certainty.
Yeah, and again, better if he's slowly watching Harry decline and he sees what he saw happen to Norman, and like maybe even we have a flashback of Norman and the butler arguing, and we see he knows, and he sees Peter interacting with him, and he knows that he's a good friend, but etc. 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 There are ways you can do it with more time. Yeah. Again, the principle of the idea is really strong, and I don't think particularly anyone does a bad job. I think it is a shame with Green Goblin in particular that the worst sequences for me action-wise in this movie are Green Goblin ones at the end, and that first scene where you just, like I say, you can barely fucking understand what's happening. They don't do anything. It's like they've just gone, okay, well, we've done a goblin before, so to make this feel different, let's just make it quicker. Okay. But the ideas are strong, and I don't think Maguire, Franco, or Dunst particularly act the plot badly. Like, Franco's a bit weird and creepy, but as you say, you could read that as deliberate. In terms of like that's not me saying him as a person, the character, like the choices he's making in those scenes could be a deliberate, you don't really know what's going on, or a deliberate kind of comic book archetype, of someone hiding something or whatever.
I'd say he's better in this movie,
but it's just not given the time.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think Franco's much better in this movie than the previous one. In that last movie when he was all snotty and like, I've got nothing but Spider-Man, that was just like a child, like, I don't know, I just hated his performance in the last movie. I really did. Every line he said just felt so fucking inauthentic. But like, and I put it down to like they wrote the wrong character for him. But in this movie, when they give him this like almost different version of the Goblin, where he's much. So he gets to play old Harry for half of the movie, which is obviously, we know he can do that well because he played old Harry in the first one and he was good in the first one. And then we sort of skip over the angry, vengeful Goblin stuff that we were doing in the last movie for a much more like, almost like, not quite Joker-esque, but this like cleverer, more conniving villain that like wants to hurt him, not just like kill him. Like the whole MJ stuff, the way he does that, the way he's like watching from across the thing and he's like smiling and he's eating his popcorn, like, what I mean? All that stuff is way more suited to Franco as a performer than the stuff they were doing with him in the previous movie. So he's much better in this one, in my opinion. But I also I 50% agree with you on the new Goblin Spidey fight from the beginning of the movie. I don't mind the first part of that fight when they're in the air and he's trying to get the ring because he drops the ring. That's really tense and quite exciting. Spidey's swinging and he cuts the web, so Spidey's falling and the ring slips out of his hands and he goes to grab it and the Goblin grabs him and then he shoots himself over to try and grab it again. It just tips his fingers and he misses it. That stuff's all pretty good and you can follow it. It's once they get in the alleyways that it gets a bit like, just a bit too fast and it's kinetic for its own good. And then obviously it ends with him tripping Harry up and Harry hitting his head, which is a pretty fun moment. I will say that thonk when he clunks his head every time makes me go oh every time. But like I don't mind the way that fight starts, but I don't care for the way the fight goes. Although there's a really cool moment, and I remember talking about this with one of the guys I saw it with originally, when Harry is going down that alley. And it gets quite thin, and he turns his sort of hoverboard side on, and he uses his hand to stabilize himself, and sparks fly out from under his hand. That's pretty cool. As just as a little visual effect thing, really neat. Oh, also massive error putting. We weren't ready for non-suited Peter Parker swinging, visually speaking, visual effects wise. It doesn't look good. Doesn't
that's the other. That's one of the other bad things about that opening fight between. Well, not opening, but that initial fight between them. And also, I think because it feels like they were just going. We've done 3 movies. How can we make this feel different? Oh, well, let's have Peter not in a suit. Like, that's maybe that wasn't the intention, but that's what it feels like. And it's weird because there is, at the moment, I think it's the scene when he's rescuing Gwen Stacy from that building getting destroyed. And, like, there's some really cool shots where he's, like, which we've seen a lot now in the Tom Holland movies and stuff, but, like, he's flying down, like, through the bricks and rubble and stuff. And I'm like, that looks really cool. And that feels like that approach, but working. That feels like, what can we do that feels different? But it works there. It does not work in that Green Goblin sequence.
Would you, just a devil's advocate here, but with Peter in the suit, though, do you not think that's more of an element of, like, we're demonstrating that Harry Osborn is so over the edge and his hatred is so true that he's willing to attack Peter Parker, civilian life, no mask or anything. Like, is that not a more of a character beat? Are they not communicating to the audience more of a hatred of Peter now rather than a hatred of Spider-Man? I always kind of felt like that was the reason for that choice. And also I like the idea that it's like it truly shows us that Peter's been caught off guard in this fight. He is not prepared. He does not have his suit. He is just, was happily living his life when he swooped out of nowhere.
Like, too happily, by the way. You can't go from one of the most downbeaten kids in existence to, I'm sorry, like, I'm glad it's all working out for you, Peter, but the moments where he's happy in this movie, no one, there is not a guy on a bike in New York, even if they are in a relationship with the love of their life, that's riding along like, I'm Peter Parker and everything's great for me. Like, it's mad. He's too happy.
I don't mind that.
You shouldn't be that happy.
I think these movies are all... I don't mind that because these movies have always had, like, very cartoony character. Like, in the previous movie when Peter was, like, when he dropped the powers and his life was better, it was raindrops keep falling on my head, he was that happy. I buy that. Maybe that's just me, but I kind of these movies are emotionally always quite dialed up. Like, everything's a bit cartoony in the Sam Raimi universe. So I think in a normal movie, you'd be absolutely right. It's way too much because no one is that outwardly happy ever, I don't think. Not unless something really special is happening. But it's certainly not just driving around on their moped in New York, But I think it kind of works. On that note, then, let's talk about the thing I controversially love in this movie and that everyone else hates. I love emo, dancing, creepy, weird Peter Parker, and I'll try my best to explain why. People, I think, look at this and go, how does he think any of this is cool or acceptable? And I say, that's the point. This version of Peter is exactly what would happen if an alien convinced him he actually was cool. This is what he thinks is cool, which is snapping his fingers, doing jazz with his weird little dance and his stupid emo hair. I think this is exactly what Peter Parker thinks a cool guy is like. And the unintentional comedy, and the reason I think that's by design and not just me fansplaining, is the way the world reacts to this. He doesn't come out dancing with all the girls like winking at him like, oh yeah, I'm into this. They are all disgusted. They are totally grossed out when he's like snapping his finger at them as he dances down the street. They all look horrified. The movie isn't telling you this is a cool, great guy. The movie is telling you this is deeply lame and he's sad and pathetic and creepy and weird. And it's so fucking funny because I just, the idea that that's what Peter Parker thinks is cool and it's been brought out by this alien just doesn't stop amusing me because it's like so out of time. Like he might as well be like, hey, hip daddios. Do you know what I mean? Like he's like, it's such an out of date. Like everything about it is just wrong. I love the dance. I love the jazz sequence. I love when he's walking down the street, clicking his fingers, the montage, everything. I love, you'll get your rent when you fix this goddamn door. Like all of that stuff for me is like my highlight of the movie with the exception of the Sandman forming scene. It's so entertaining, top to bottom. I laughed so much. So yeah, I'm sorry everyone. I love that stuff. And I even love, the dance sequence ends and he does that sort of dip dance move with Gwen and she lays eyes on MJ and realizes it was for her and how shitty it was. And she's disgusted by him and she tells MJ, I'm so sorry. Oh, yes. What? Just nail it. Just absolutely nailed it. That is nothing but net. That is a perfect execution of that idea. It's one of the few things this movie really takes its time with. And that's why I found it funny earlier when you said you thought the sort of emo Peter stuff went on too long. I think it sort of feels like it goes on too long because the rest of this movie is so fucking ADHD and schizophrenic because it has to be. It's like, now this, and now this, and now this. And the one time it actually gives stuff breathing room and nails it, it does feel weird pacing-wise because the rest of the movie is so frenetic. But I think, like, again, in a less stuffed movie, when the rest of the movie is paced correctly around this material, this stuff works so much better. But, oh my God, I love it. I love it so much, Chris. I love it. I really do. So yeah, you can tell me, you're welcome to tell me I'm wrong and tell me all the ways. I understand I am fully in the minority here. Most people hate all of that stuff. They think it's goofy and out of place and it doesn't work and X, Y, and Z. And I see it, I just do not agree.
Well, my issue is because but all the reasons I don't like it are fundamentally your point, which is that's the point. Mm-hmm. I will say for anyone screaming it when I've just checked it as well. When it starts, when he's initially walking down the street, the women in the street are looking at him like, ooh, who's this? Like, but obviously when by the time you get to the dance sequence, yes, everyone is looking at him.
I've
like,
got it
you're
in front of me
monster.
now. I've got it in front of me now, and they're like pulling their eyebrows down at him. I don't know if we're looking. Maybe there's 2 or 3 shots like this, and you've got a different one up. But I've got it in front of me, and they are looking pretty grossed out by him. I can send you some screenshots if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll do the same, and then we'll see if we're looking at the same. I mean, it might be our. Hold on, let me.
Yeah.
What's your
my time code?
Time code.
Okay, let me pull it back up because I was flicking through to another part of the movie and now I've lost it. 1 second.
That first woman, that's a smile. Hold on.
Here we go. I've got it up. Okay. Yeah, okay, but even if you're right that the first one does, I've just seen at least 4 or 5 women separate that do not. So here we go. So he's clicking his fingers, he's pointing at random women, right? So I've got it in front of me where I'm at. My time code is 1 hour 34:41, and he turns around to those 2 women and does the weird slide, and they are not impressed. And then he gives her a thumbs up, spins around, walks on. Then he goes into the shop to get new clothes, and a woman sort of raises her hands like, oh, as he goes into the shop.
We're talking about a different bit. So like I say, I'm talking about the initial bit, which is at 1:30. Immediately after he's essentially left Harry for dead.
Right. Yeah. So I'm talking about just after the bugle scene when he's walking down the street. So after the bit where he puts his feet up on his desk.
Oh, no, I'm sure you're right about. Yeah, no, we're talking about 2 different scenes. I'm sure you're right about the scene you're talking about. Yeah.
But it's not just one. It's like everyone he passes for that entire sequence just absolutely cannot stand him. It's great. It's really good.
Yeah,
let me go back to you. I want to see.
Right.
I want to see your scene too, though. Let me go back because my curiosity is. Yeah. So the first woman smiles. The second woman slightly pulls her hair back, but then. And that woman not happy with him. Oh, and then he gets distracted by a newspaper. So yeah, okay. But in that one, 2 out of 2 out of 3. But yeah, when it comes to the actual dance sequence, yeah.
Oh yeah, like I said, I was merely voicing. I imagine people that really hate this sequence might be remembering that initial bit, and I was voicing it, for them.
Yeah.
But like I acknowledge, that's the initial thing, and by the time we get to, we're talking about a sequence that ends with him pushing Mary Jane on the ground, and I think that's the problem. Like for me, and I know this is the point of it. And again, I think that would be better with, more time dedicated to the theme as opposed to just a scene, although I agree with you, it is given proper time. I also loved the Gwen Stacy thing. I thought that was executed so well. Mm-hmm. But I just don't want to see, I know it's the point, but I don't care, rightly or wrongly, I don't want to see our hero act like that. I don't want to see our hero fucking ordering the girl who lives next door to go get him nuts. Like, I don't want to see, the Eddie stuff. Eddie tried to screw him over, fine, whatever. But the way he treats Gwen Stacy, the way he treats the neighbor, the way he treats Mary Jane, I just don't want to see it. Like, that's not what I want from my Peter Parker.
Do you think there's a world where if we properly and truly explain Venom and how this works, and how this, then you'd be more on board with those ideas.
Absolutely.
In a world where we truly understand Venom has literally corrupted him as a human being, so it's not really Peter making these choices. It's Peter and the alien fused as one. That makes it make more sense, right? And then you're more willing to accept him.
Completely. Like I just said, if the themes were explored more, then fine. But they're not. I have, and you could fansplain some of it, especially the more Venom knowledge you have. I'm not accepting that as an excuse for it. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm saying you could do that.
I am fully. What I'm saying is though, does your issue not come back? All roads lead to lack of time. Because if we'd have explained all of that, because you said you're not on board, you don't want to see a world where your hero does that. Was kind of how you phrased that. I'm paraphrasing, but that's sort of what you said. I'm saying is there is a world where you'd be okay with that, where they explain Venom properly.
Oh yeah.
I guess that's what I'm saying. It's totally. Because you're in theory you're right, but I think in practice, in what's supposed to be happening in the scene, badly explained or not, he is supposed to be under the influence of this alien. That is the idea, and that is why he behaves the way he behaves, and that is in the text of the movie. Because Doc Connors, in one line, says this has led to, aggression in hosts. Bad choices, Kurt Connors explains how this alien corrupts in one line of dialogue that is then not really readdressed. Right before he says, "You didn't keep any of it anyway." You didn't keep any of it.
But I think most people's problem with this sequence probably stems from in the context in the context of one line, in the context of what is presented to us on the screen, they go too far with it given the thin justification. You absolutely could make it work. I absolutely see why you like the scene. I think even if I didn't mind the scene, I'd still be saying this because I think one of us needs to represent the other side of this scene in particular, or people are going to be like, Rewind Reviews lost their fucking minds.
A lot of people also just don't like the cheesy dancing and stuff, to the jazz song and him playing the thing and then dancing. Unfortunately, but I love all that. I think that's so goofy and fun.
Unfortunately, that's not my problem with it because I think as you indicated earlier about something else, that fits. We had Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head in Spider-Man 2, and that's considered one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. That absolutely fits this trilogy. I haven't really got a problem with that. Even the actual dance, because of what they do with Gwen Stacy, I haven't particularly got a problem, but the culmination of all of it, like I say, forget the dancing, one of the most egregious things for me is how he treats the neighbour, which we also don't really see. I suppose he apologises to
her dad.
He apologises to the landlord, doesn't he? But that's the thing. And again, the sequence, as you say, and a part of the problem is the ending, because he pushes Mary Jane to the ground, and it doesn't get fucking discussed or acknowledged.
Well, can we talk a little bit about that? Because one thing I wanted to say is that part is even actually framed as an accident. He's not looking at her. He's pushing the guy in front. Because one thing that I've, in my memory of this, he just turned around and just whacked her, like doing deliberate thing. And I was like, ugh, not looking forward to seeing that. And then on the rewatch, I was pleasantly pleasantly surprised to see that it is a heat of the moment. He swings his arm backwards because he's, people are grabbing at him. And in that, she's come up behind him to try and grab him by the shoulders and stop him. And because he swings his arm backwards, he knocks her down. And then what the movie does is, that's the catalyst for change.
Yeah, that's what pulls him out of it. Yeah, totally.
That's the moment he goes, oh, this has gone way too far, and realizes how corrupted he's been and gets rid of the suit. So I'm not even against the hitting Mary Jane thing in the way he does because of the framing of it, because he doesn't do it with deliberate. Even with the alien's corruption, he wouldn't have hurted Mary Jane. But because she got hurt by accident as a result of his choices, that's the moment he chooses to go, oh no, this is horribly wrong. And realizes what he's done. And that's kind of I think you make that way more acceptable when making the character go, oh fuck, I've done a horrible thing.
Agree, but as you said earlier, we probably do need to then, I assume this is one of the elements you meant when criticising the Mary Jane Peter of it all in terms of the ending. I think we do need to see the two characters acknowledge it together and talk about the behaviour as a whole.
But I will say that, the two things that will go through hand in hand with this podcast is it's overstuffed and it all comes back to that. And if we're talking about a plot with any kind of, involvement in this film, just assume that the criticism is, and then they don't do anything with it, or it ends as suddenly, or it doesn't get a proper ending, because no plot in this movie gets a proper ending. So nothing gets properly addressed or explored.
I don't love the choice, and I don't love the execution. I think you could argue Harry's plot does have an ending, though.
Look, I remember them in the Clerks documentary talking about the original ending for Clerks, and the guy says, and I'll never forget this, killing the character at the end is what you do when you don't know how to end your story.
Yeah.
And there is nothing lazier than what they do with Harry at the end of this movie. Oh, they're not going to actually address any of their issues. He's dead.
Yeah, like I said, don't like the choice, don't like the execution, but it is a literal, it is not a cliffhanger.
But it isn't, because we don't get, but I'd say it is, because we don't ever get the actual conversations that need to happen between these two characters.
Yeah.
We're robbed of that. We're robbed again. We're robbed of the actual character beat ending because of a stupid plot thing of he's dead now. So I would say it still lands in that category. And I hate to disagree with you on that point, but it really pissed me off. Pissed me off then. Pisses me off now.
No, it's fair. I can't. No. That's fair. I can't moan about. You could argue we know what happens with Mary Jane and Peter because they kiss. So I can't argue that none of, part of my argument for the emo Peter stuff can't be the end of and not acknowledge that the same thing happens with Harry and Peter.
Yeah, so, Harry's death and being like, you're my best friend, is the equivalent of MJ just kissing Peter and then being like, that's enough, right? You audience, you're happy? They're back together? Everyone okay? Cool. All right. Oh, that's our time. Oh, we do have to rush the ending a little bit, but see you all next week. It's just awful. By the way, a little note I wanted to while we're on the subject of Harry and the ending, all of the shitty fucking quips between the two of them. Read The Room movie. Read The fucking Room. One, right, they're not appropriate. These two literally were just trying to kill each other. I'm happy for them to be working together for Mary Jane, but to be so suddenly buddy-buddy is fucking obnoxious. But two, write better quips. Looks like just in the nick of time. Need a little help over here. I'm busy right now. Just fucking hang on. To what? Ooh. Hey, Pete, am I interrupting? Harry says as he launches in. Oh, fuck me. Whoever wrote those lines should literally quit writing forever. Just go, stop. No. All of those are some of the worst, awful, horrible, cliche one-liners you could ever have put in. Hey, pal, how you doing? Been better. Oh, fuck off. Did AI write this? Awful. Fuck right off.
Can I, after we've been quite down, can I pay the movie a compliment?
Please.
In a movie that is overstuffed,
Yes.
there is a brilliant scene, which is one of the best scenes of the movie,
Sure.
that is completely unnecessary. And for there to be a scene which is unnecessary in a movie that is overstuffed and still be brilliant shows how brilliant the scene is. But not only is that scene brilliant, every single scene and frame involving J.J. Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson and J.K. Simmons is phenomenal. Yeah. And the scene I'm talking about is the blood pressure scene. Where the guy's trying to pitch him new ideas and Betty is buzzing him. And it's not relevant to anything, but it is a fucking delight. And it is phenomenal. And you're just like, every time he's on screen buying the camera off the kid and the kid being like, film cost you more, and him being annoyed and slightly respectful, because that's exactly what he would do. Like, every scene involving that character is brilliant. But I particularly love the blood pressure scene because it is a moment of release in a film that has just been go, go, go. But I love the fact that scene is so brilliant, even though in most circumstances in an overstuffed movie, you'd be going, well, we don't need that scene. But we fucking do need that scene because it's fantastic. The slow point after he's been buzzed 3 times, the slow point at the tablets as if to be like, are these the one?
Yeah. It's, you know what the bit that gets me is after the final buzz and he just sort of takes a breath and he puts his finger on the buzzer and just goes, thank you. Really quietly, really softly. It's perfect. It's glorious. And look, it's one of those things that, like, it's well written and well performed, and it's like a really great premise executed perfectly, and JK's just amazing at it, and it's just a great moment of comedy. It could be a sketch of its own and it would just be brilliant all on its, irrespective of the rest of the movie. And there's a bunch of stuff like that throughout the movie. Don't get me wrong, I ragged quite hard on the weird quippy dialogue at the end, but there's tons of great little scenes throughout this movie that are funny or interesting or like do good stuff or sort of entertain you for whatever reason. There's loads of that. There's a bunch of scenes in this movie that were, momentarily entertaining. But, we've said from the beginning, the big issue with this movie is, as a whole, it doesn't function. But you could take a ton of scenes out of this and show them to a person and go, do you think this scene came from a good movie? And they'd be like, yeah, that seems really fun. You show them the Sandman fight in the truck. You show them that JK scene. You show them, like... You could even probably show them the Peter dancing thing. They're like, what's going on here? That seems really weird. Kind of funny. I could see somebody being into the idea of this movie from individual moments, just as a whole. Ooh. Anyway, can we talk very quickly
Can I just say, isn't it funny to know that if this movie had existed in an MCU world, we would have a Disney Plus spin-off with Elizabeth Banks and J.K. Simmons?
Yes.
And
it'd be my favourite
running the Daily Bugle.
Yeah. And it would be my favourite thing.
Incredible.
Let's just quickly talk about other ways in which this movie cuts corners for time that are deeply irritating, and then we should talk a little bit about Aunt May because I've got some issues there too. Look, I'm going to take this as one segment, just all of the ways in which the movie cuts corners that I hate. The Venom symbiote just comes from space, lands next to Peter. No explanation. It's just there now. It's there, and it's landed right next to him. How convenient. Lovely. Hate that top to bottom. But also, exposition, dialogue. The dialogue in this movie is significantly worse than the dialogue in the previous movies because a lot of the time, instead of it being character-based, which the previous movies were, we complimented the second one, for example, on being focused on Peter Parker and the people around him's lives. Spider-Man is almost incidental in that movie. Spider-Man is present in that movie, but it's a movie about Peter and MJ and Harry and the way their lives intersect, and that is glorious. That is beautiful. This movie can't do that because every scene has to be explaining shit all of the fucking time. We can't even get into the Flint Marko thing because we have to set him up in one scene where his wife comes down and tells him his own backstory, which is fucking insane. She's like, you're a convicted murderer for this, that, and the other. Do you remember? He's like, yeah, I fucking do remember, actually. Yeah, funnily enough, I am aware of my history. Like, it's just clunky as shit all the time. And even a character like Kurt Connors is just fucked over by the fact that every scene he has to be exposition because all he's there for is to explain Venom. Like, it's awful. Awful, awful, awful.
It's
yeah.
it's a pacing thing as well. Like the one I really noticed was we have Peter go to Harry and be like, "Will you help me?" And Harry says no. And in literally the next scene, the butler's like, "Nah, you should probably help him because of this reason." And he's like, "Okay."
Yep.
I'm like, "Oh wow, we couldn't put these two scenes apart for a little jeopardy." Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Harry appears at the beginning of the movie to fight Peter, and then because they're like, shit, yeah, Peter's got to be busy the next chunk of the movie. We can't really have them together. What do? He's got amnesia. Like, what a shortcut! Like, it's a soap opera bullshit. It's like he's got amnesia, so he doesn't want to fight Peter for the next hour, so Peter can do all of the Sandman black suit stuff, and then he can remember when it's convenient for us. Write him out of the movie for a bit with amnesia. Perfect. Tick. Like, there's just so much of those convenient plot threads.
And there's also a fucking read of this movie where Harry's left for dead. How does, he just disappears, Peter, fucking smiles, throws the bomb at him. There's no indication that he survives that.
True.
And they just write him out that way.
Yeah.
And then it's just, when he next appears, he's scarred. Oh, okay.
He's quite severely scarred. And I'll tell you, it was a mistake because...
Of course, a fucking bomb went off next to his head, Dan.
Yes, a bomb goes off next to Peter's head in the first movie in the exact same way. It's a frame for frame. And Peter wasn't horribly scarred, so that's number one. But number two, that's how I know he's dying. When I first watched this movie, that's when I figured out he was going to die. When we cut back to him, and he's got the scarring, I'm like, he's dead. Because the studio wouldn't let James Franco be in these movies as a sort of Phantom of the Opera style character. The studio want their leads to be handsome. Do you know what I mean?
But he's got money, hasn't he? So he could just come back in the next movie and be like, "Oh, lucky you could pay for all that plastic surgery."
Yeah, true. Well, and if you were saying that about the third movie following the second, I'd be like, nah, the writing in these movies is way better than that. Come on, they're not going to quickly hand wave something away like that. But having watched the third movie, that's exactly what probably would have happened. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of summarize the constant whiplash of this movie's pace and how it infects every little scene and choice and character thing. And the movie's got so much plot that it doesn't get to focus on character. And the character arcs are all rushed, flat, quick, endless, and it's all, again, comes back. All roads lead to the movie has too much going on in it. And yeah, that's just how it is. Let's talk, speaking of rushed character arcs that are just sort of there because they're there and they're rushed and they don't go anywhere or do anything. Let's talk about Aunt May. Let's pull that Band-Aid off. We spoke quite fondly of the way they used Aunt May in the previous movie. I think it was kind of perfect. I accept that, there wasn't enough room for her to be in the movie much this time. But there's a part of me that thinks that if you're going to do the truth revealed about Ben Parker's death storyline, we needed to strip some other stuff out of this movie and bump up Rosemary Harris's time in the movie. Not just because I love watching Rosemary Harris play Aunt May, because she's wonderful, of course. That's part of it. But because she's a huge part of Peter's motivation in this movie. And she gets 3 scenes in the whole movie. And they also sort of contradict what we did with her in the previous one. And I really don't care for that. I don't care for that at all. I don't... Especially the one where she's like, Spider-Man wouldn't kill anyone. And there's just no sense of shock or, upset that she knows Peter might have done these horrible things. She's talking about Spider-Man in the truer sense of he's another person, which just undoes, or at least goes too far to confirm the other option. I think keeping it vague again would have been nice, but this doesn't keep it vague at all. This is pretty clean cut, I think, that she doesn't know. And that's upsetting to me. But also, she's just massively underserved, should have much bigger impact on Peter's arc, this thing, and should be way more involved in the Ben stuff than she is. Absolutely bananas how underused she is and how they don't do anything with her and how they step on the previous movie. It's just crazy. And also, when she's in each scene, she's just being weird and preachy, and because she's doing so much exposition about how she feels emotionally, because that's all she can do. Get in, get out. The scene can't last too long. We don't even get those nice moments like in the previous one where he gave her the 20 back and she was refusing. And it was just such a lovely character thing that invests you in her and stuff. Oh, God, I yearn for those days. She's one of the worst executed parts of the movie, I think. I don't think anything about her use in this movie works. And she should have been pivotal, considering the plot line they chose to do with the rewriting of Ben Parker's death.
Which is just unfortunate, as we've already discussed, done too clunkily. Like one thing I love is why are the police calling them in and telling them? Like, because every argument you can create for that decision, you'd go, well then why didn't they tell them originally? Like, to tell them now. Yeah. Like, and I understand maybe you could go, well, because he's now released, so he's potentially a danger to them. But I'd still argue, well, then they would have or should have told them at the time when they discovered this. Surely
it raises more questions than it solves.
So clunky.
Yeah, and they try to hand wave that away in bad dialogue too. Because Peter questions them and they're like, don't worry about that right now. We got to focus on the here and the now. I'm like, no, wait a minute. He's got a point. They try to solve that problem by having Peter raise it. They just, well, we've said it now. We can move on. Someone's expressed that opinion. And also, that scene sometimes a bit feels like it exists also just because they added Gwen Stacy, who's a delightful character in the comic books, and just didn't have anything for her to do other than to be an object of desire for Brock, which is fine because that is from the comics also. I understand that. Gwen and Brock have their history in the comics, so I get that. She obviously is a catalyst for MJ and Peter's devolving of their relationship, but Captain Stacy, her dad, he really doesn't need to be in this fucking movie. That is such a weird inclusion. Absolutely pointless. Weird, bizarre choice. Because his whole story is just not present. He's just literally exists because he exists. Because we've got Gwen, we get Captain, I guess. Like, what? Like, why is he here? He doesn't do anything. He looks up at the crane accident in fear for his daughter, and Eddie talks to him a little bit. And there is something kind of fun about that because that's one of the Eddie. He does that great "I'm dating your daughter" thing, and then you have that really gross reveal later that actually he isn't dating her at all. He just sort of is implying that, which is really just makes the whole thing weirder, but in a good way. Like, it makes Eddie's character even worse, which is what you want. But also then he just sort of appears and tells Peter about the thing, but then he's just not in the movie again. Like, what is the point? It could have just been a random police officer at the end, and I don't know. There's no purpose for that character to be in this movie.
Him and Gwen are inexplicitly at Harry's funeral. They appear then.
I didn't even know they are, aren't they? Why? Yeah. Why?
It's just like why? Why? Like,
why are they there?
Completely. Do you think? Because I understand it's Gwen Stacy. There's Eddie Brock. But do you think it's cleaner if they just did all the sort of jealousy element of the Gwen Stacy plotline with the neighbor? Like, is that cleaner or is that more difficult? Because
that's interesting.
That slightly changes the character of the neighbor.
It would have been cleaner. Probably would have saved you some scenes. Does it? Is that enough to? Do you gain enough time back doing that? Do you gain enough time back doing that to like actually improve other elements of the movie? Because I guess the thing with
that in a way,
go on.
In a way, and I don't mean this to be. I don't. Hopefully, I don't sound a dick here. In a way, that's redundant because actually, the only way you gain time to fix anything in this movie is by literally like taking away one of the villain stories. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't think you can fix the movie as it exists with these, all three villains.
And here's the thing, right? I do understand from a studio perspective, like, Gwen Stacy's a big part of Spider-Man's history. We jumped straight to MJ. Gwen Stacy was Spider-Man's first love interest. You know, it's weird that we jumped in at MJ. You know, do we do Gwen? I can see it. And look, Bryce Dallas Howard is great as MJ, as Gwen in this movie. She's wonderful. I've always liked her as an actress. I think she's pretty much, you know, not always had the best scripts. I've seen projects she's been in that have been bad, but never her fault. And I think she's good casting for the role. But yeah, you're right. Maybe we could have just cut Gwen altogether and just like made the jealousy plot related to the neighbor because she was pre-established. It definitely would have saved the movie some time and cleaned up some of the plot lines. Yeah, I could see a world where that works. I will say, in terms of action sequences, a lot of people love the big crane thing. I don't love the crane sequence. It's just...
No.
I tell you what it is. It doesn't really have any... There's no character things happening alongside it. The cool thing about the previous movies, every action sequence, there's character stuff happening. Peter's trying to convince because he knows who he is. He's trying to convince him to stop doing what he's doing. Or there's always a character thing happening alongside an action beat, and mostly that's true in this movie too. The first fight between Peter and Harry is all about their rivalry and their situation. The fight at the end. Venom literally hates Spider-Man because he took everything away from him, and Sandman is there too. And we're also doing the Harry plot alongside that. So most of the action sequences in this movie have some sort of character beat. I guess that one is just spectacle. Like, it's just there to be a bit of a wow moment. And it is fine for that, but it's just, it does feel strange in the wake of the other scenes, which all seem to have some emotional weight to them.
Yeah, like I said earlier, some of the spectacle I do like. Like, I think a lot of the falling through stuff in that sequence is done well. But as you say, there's no particular jeopardy to it because we're literally introduced to people in that scene. Like, it's very funny, but the fact that, oh, hi, this is your daughter and I'm dating her and da-da-da is like, that's the introduction. Like, when I watched it, I was like, oh, that's the introduction, is it, to Eddie and the captain? Okay. Cool, but yeah, it's not doing anything. I was gonna bring up as well another nitpick from the ending is the fact that Mary Jane just, she's definitely getting fired, right? You can't just stop your performance mid song. Like, get off the stage to have a dance with someone. I will correction from what we both said earlier, by the way. They don't actually kiss, they just dance. But yeah, it's just mad. It's so bad, that ending moment.
Sorry, with the kiss thing, I'm confused what you're referring to. I got a bit jumbled there. Which moment do they not kiss?
At the very end. I think we both said at the end, like, they kiss and all's forgiven. They don't actually technically kiss.
Do they?
I rewatched it to see. No, I rewatched it to see her just leave the stage to check I was right about my memory of that. And then they don't. Well, certainly not on the version that's on Netflix. They don't kiss. There's definitely an indication.
They lean in at the very least. Oh, they just sort of hug. They just hug. Yeah, we just fade out on the hug. You're right. Huh.
I think our criticism remains. There's definitely the vibe that they get back together. We still need those conversations we don't get between the two of them.
Yeah, it doesn't change our opinion. It's just interesting.
It was just a correction for anyone that heard that and was like, they don't kiss.
Yeah, well, that person is correct. They do not. Well done. So let's. What's left? There's definitely more stuff to discuss, but fuck me, I don't know. I'm tired. I'm tired of this movie. I hate this movie. So let's see. There was the title sequence looks ugly and cheap. I'm sorry, it just does. It looks like I don't know. It just looks bad. I don't know why they decided to do the title sequence like that with the weird, like, the shots that recap the previous movie just in the webs. It just looks lazy and not good. The narration at the beginning, I don't know what happened, or whether Tobey Maguire was just, didn't have a lot of time that day. It is one of the worst. I mean, it is so flatly, lazily delivered. I mean, it feels like it was like 6 months after the movie wrapped, and they went, Toby, we need you for some lines. He's like, okay, what do I need to say? All right. I'm Spider-Man and I'm sad. We got it? Okay, cool. Bye. And he just fucked off. Like, it is the definition of phoned in. Awful. His narration in the opening of the movie, I don't, do another take. just do that's not the take. Do another one.
Just to add to your thing about the opening credits, it's so mad because they did it so beautifully in the second movie with that animation style. And what's also mad is the choices of the clips that they've put in. Like, I know it's an iconic scene, but if the purpose is to give people the information they need to know before this movie, we don't need a shot of Spider-Man pooping from the train sequence. Like, there's so many weird choices of what they included in that montage as well.
Yeah, it's so strange. There's a few of those. I don't know, man. Like, just shots that you just go, like, I don't know why this needs to be in the, you know what I mean?
The
like
recap, as it were. Yeah.
Also, the movie gives away its big twist 30 minutes too early in dialogue for no reason. So one of the big reveals of this movie is when they get sat down and they're like, "Hey, Peter, the guy you thought killed your Uncle Ben wasn't the guy that killed your Uncle Ben. It was a different guy." And I'm like, cool. That would have been really surprising if 15 minutes ago there wasn't an audible police officer that said, "Flint Marko, the guy we tried for the Ben Parker homicide." Did you not think people would remember who Ben Parker was? Was that a line of dialogue from an earlier version of the script? Like, let me how to phrase this. Was there an early version of the script where that is revealed sooner, so that line isn't like a problem? And then they moved the reveal to later in the movie, but forgot to remove that line. That's what it feels like. Which again feels very slapdash, and like they, that this script was thrown together very quickly. So yeah, not great. What else? Oh, fuck me. When we zoom in and we do the DNA sequence sand shift again. I'm sorry, it didn't work in the first movie. Doesn't work here. Stop zooming in and showing me DNA. You're not House MD. Doesn't work.
Very specific reference.
Well, it's just like a TV show got away with it, zooming in on a person and seeing the inside of their body, but it does not work in this movie. Didn't work in the first one either. That's a criticism across this franchise, across the first and third. They didn't do it in the second one. So yeah, not good. Oh, the Daily Bugle. It's hip. It's now. It's wow. And how they should go ahead with that. That should be the new campaign. It's great. It's about as cool as Peter is when he's dancing.
Yeah, like I say, every scene involving Betty and Jay Jonah was phenomenal.
Yeah. Quick other note as well, in terms of Peter's shitty behavior through this movie, I again wonder if there was some shuffling, because I think the kiss with Gwen on the stage is one of his worst crimes of just being a shitty human being in this movie. And that's well before he gets the suit, before he's corrupted by an alien. They're not listening to MJ and dismissing her, feelings is also awful. And that whole go get him tiger moment is bad. And it's like written to be that way. He's written to be a bad person. That's the point. But I just feel like it's a strange thing that he's already being the worst well before he gets an alien to make him the worst.
The kiss is the most egregious, because his behavior when he's like, yeah, I get the same as Spider-Man. Like, it's knobbish, but I understand why the character might not realize he's being a knob in that moment. Like, it's not deliberate. It's not too knobbish. The kiss is insanity. Like, like you just wouldn't think that was okay. Like, not only to kiss her, but to replicate your kiss with the girl you want to be your fiance, who's in the crowd. It's madness. Like, yeah, the kiss is the worst crime.
Bruce Campbell is in this movie again, third time. I like to think it's the same character with just different jobs. In this movie, he's the French waiter at the restaurant, the maitre d'.
No,
it's good.
I feel like we've disagreed with each other a few times this episode, more than usual, but I disagree with you on that. I don't like to think it's the same character. Do you remember the episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Bill Hader played three brothers that were claiming they weren't brothers?
Yeah.
I like to think it's that.
One brother became a wrestling promoter, announcer. The other brother became the usher at a fancy theatre. The third one became French.
And throughout the Daily Bugle spin-off series, you could have Bruce Dickinson pop up as different brothers.
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell, sorry, yeah. Not Bruce Dickinson, not the lead singer of Iron Maiden. That would be weird, but Bruce Campbell.
But I love him in this scene particularly, and this is a controversial thought. I think he's great in the other two movies. I think this is his best cameo in these movies, and obviously he worked with Sam Raimi for a long time. He was in The Evil Dead, Ash, all that stuff. So I know why he's in all these movies. But I think if you're comparing his three cameos, across these three movies, I think this is the best one. He's so funny in this scene. He's so over the top. The accent is just fucking outrageous. The moment when Peter waves at Gwen and he mistakenly thinks that's the signal for the glass and he ushers these two guys over and then sends them away and then it happens again. It's just, everything about it is fucking perfect. Like, his original interaction with Peter is great. It's so funny. Like, just an amazing comedic performance. Like, we talked earlier about how this movie has plenty of scenes that are great in isolation. This is one of them. It's just so funny. It's up there with J. Jonah Jameson and his blood pressure medication. It's just wonderfully done. Very well conceived. Perfectly executed.
I really wish we went back to him. I really wish we saw his reaction to her walking off.
Yeah.
I was gutted we didn't get that. I was like, oh, come on. This is a great opportunity.
Yes. Speaking of scenes that are cheesy and don't work, MJ and Harry dancing while cooking, no.
Why do films keep doing, like, have you ever done that? Have you ever done, like, you know what I mean?
Dancing.
Like, why do films keep doing that? Like, I don't know, maybe me and you just don't have the rhythm of a dancer, maybe, but it just seems...
My feeling on this is that they've basically decided that that's shorthand for two people getting a bit flirty. That's what's happened. And the movie has no time because all roads lead back to no time. And they're like, how can we quickly establish that this is developing quite fast and becoming romantic with Harry and MJ? And the quick answer is, they're cooking and they're being goofy and he's making little jokes and then they start dancing. Like, it's just quick, easy cinema language to make you believe that. It's a horrible trope. And it's one of those things that's in 100 movies and hasn't worked since the 80s maybe as a way to establish that because people just see through it now. It's just such a common, boring trope. It's like later in the movie when he does the whole... what was the quip that I was complaining about? The one that's like in every fucking movie ever. It's like, am I interrupting? Oh, kind of busy right now. It's just like, it's shorthand for those two people are having fun and bouncing off each other. But actually, like, it just, no one, we've seen it in 100 movies. It doesn't really have any impact. It's just, anyway, it doesn't matter. Also, if we're talking about cheesy things that don't work, I'm sorry, I'm cutting the newscaster. She's gone from my movie. If I'm in charge of this movie, the brutality of it. Oh, fuck off. The movie is literally the movie's telling me how to feel about the scene. That what they're saying is Venom holding Spidey down while Sandman crushes him is brutal, and instead of doing that by good filmmaking, they've shorthanded it again, and they've got a lady telling me, "Isn't it brutal?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, thanks, lady." And she doesn't deliver it great either. But
it was quite brutal though, wasn't it? Like, I don't think the visuals of the actual scene in question don't work.
Well, they make it. Then you really don't need the fucking the lady telling me that I feel that way about it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree with you on that. I'm just I'm not disagreeing with that point. I'm just saying I thought the actual. I thought the actual visuals of Sandman punching Peter were effective.
Sure. I'm not disagreeing with that. At all. I've already talked about this. The evil version of Harry in this movie is a better fit for James Franco's acting than the snotty stuff in the last movie. He's like lying and manipulating and devious, and that suits him way better. It's almost a completely different character. And I guess in a movie where it doesn't improve his performance, I'd be complaining about the shift in Harry from movie to movie. But... kind of works here. Harry's entire plan to make MJ break up with Peter would work a lot better or would have felt worse for me as a viewer if she wasn't already basically on the verge of doing that anyway. It's not a good plot point. It doesn't work. Oh, I do.
And I don't think you need, you don't need to, especially if Harry's going to trick her or force her anyway to say that he's the other man or whatever. I don't think you need to. What's the advantage of making Mary Jane morally grey in this movie as well? Like, have her be on the verge of breaking up with him, but I don't think we need to have her kiss Harry. No, I don't think that's necessary.
No. I do love Tobey Maguire's "ooh" when Harry threatens to kick his ass. That's a glorious bit of comedy acting from Tobey. It's so good. I've got a note here that the scene where he busts Brock is quite satisfying as well. Where he catches him out for being, even though he's being all douchey and like black suit Spider-Man because he's got the emo hair at that point, and he like throws it down, and he like shoves him up against the glass and whatever. Like, it is very satisfying because Brock is so unlikable, and like Brock's whole argument of like, don't do this to me. It's like, no, you kind of did this to yourself, buddy. This isn't Peter's doing. It really, that's well written and works quite well. What else have we got? There's a moment when he crosses a line for me. When he first gets to the club and he's a bit sleazy with the lady at the desk, the lady. Yeah. That, for some reason, was a step too far for me, because the idea is that the Venom symbiote sort of enhances your existing like feelings, right? And if Peter wants to try and be the cool guy, then this weird fucking emo jazz dancey guy is what he imagines and therefore becomes. And I think I like that. I think that's fine. And even him like pointing at the ladies, like, is kind of like, this very cheesy version of what he imagines being a ladies' man is, which again is very quaint and actually kind of adorable that he thinks that's anything. But the one where he leans in to give her the money and is, making like leery, he makes a leery comment of some sort. I can't remember exactly, but I remember feeling very strongly that was a step too far, because that implies that Peter is quite leery and that the symbiote is enhancing that, and I didn't like that element of it. There was a weird line they crossed there that I couldn't quite explain, but I didn't like it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. What else have I got in my notes? MJ kidnapped again. Let's talk about it. So quickly, they were.
I was going to say, well, that's why the newscaster's there, because the newscaster might as well be going, we know this is the third time you've seen this, but there is jeopardy.
But it is happening. So the original version of this script, Gwen is the one Brock kidnaps, because Gwen is was the object of his desire, and he's not specifically like interested in hurting another person. His focus is Peter, right? And he wants Peter there so he can do him damage, and he chooses to kidnap Gwen because of his weird obsession with Gwen that we established earlier in the movie. And then MJ is the one that talks to Harry, because MJ knows the truth about Norman. Because obviously Peter and her have been, they've been open and talking about this stuff for, whatever the gap between the movies is. And she's the one who reveals that Peter didn't kill him, and that's what really happened. Now, I've got mixed feelings on that personally, because I think, why didn't she say something sooner? To be honest, if that's the idea. But I think I like that better, because one, it's not MJ being kidnapped for a third movie in a row, and I do think there's a certain amount of logic to Brock kidnapping Gwen instead, that you can sort of justify that, and I like MJ having a role in saving the day.
Brock thinks Peter's with Gwen Stacy. Like, do we even establish how they know to take Mary Jane?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I actually did. Yeah, no, they don't establish that at all. Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. So it's kind of like that version of the movie, which was the original plan, goes away, and they opt for, bringing in Kirsten Dunst again to scream her head off. And actually, she was not happy about it, and actually refused to do the screams. So the screams are stock screams from the last two movies. All of MJ's screaming in this are screams they recorded from Kirsten Dunst from the previous two. She wasn't happy at all.
I think Gwen's better, but I do understand if you want to do them getting back together at the end, it being Gwen makes that harder, because then he's lit. But then again, could she be angry at him for saving someone's life? Like, I don't know. It's messy from the Peter and Mary Jane of it all if it's Gwen, but I do think it is better for the story and makes more sense as well.
Yeah, and then when Harry dies, MJ can show up. Like she told Harry that Peter was in trouble and he needed his help, and why convinces Harry. Then MJ has actually had an impact on the story for once, some agency. Harry goes off to help Peter. She follows on foot or by cab or whatever, and scrambles her way up there, just in time for Harry's death, and she arrives for that. Like that, I think we can still do all that stuff, and that works better for me. But that is pissing in the wind in what is wrong with this movie. So I don't know. That ain't saving the film, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
My notes literally
No, not at
say
all.
this ending is so contrived and so quick. How suddenly Venom just finds Spider-Man and kidnaps MJ. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, all of the ending just doesn't work from the fight sequence on, really. Like, yeah.
Another note I've got here, which I think is good. It's I hate this character so much I want him atomized, and the quote was attributed to Sam Raimi, probably. Venom's death. Let's talk about it.
Referring to. Yeah, it's bad. It does make sense with the character they've created of Eddie. He would be so desperate for that power still that he would just run into that to try and like save it or do it on instinct. But it's very contrived, isn't it?
I think I don't mind that Eddie having the ego and the desperation for the power because there's nothing left in his life, that Peter would go to the trouble to save him, separate him from the symbiote, and then Eddie would jump into the blast anyway. Like, that, I think, is very Green Goblin dying at his own hands, or Doc Ock dying to save everyone because he's realised the error of his ways. It fits with these movies quite well, and actually it is a third, even more interesting take on that. It's crazy that these three movies all end with the villain essentially killing themselves, but have found completely different angles to approach it. The problem, say it with me, is they don't do enough with it. It's not explored enough because we don't set up enough of why he loves this power, is obsessed with this power, to really feel that choice as much as we should. We feel it on a very surface level. The movie makes it clear what's happening, but you're not invested in it as a situation or a choice. Like, I love it as a choice on paper. The idea that Eddie is he feels like nothing without that suit, that he would like throw himself into essentially an explosion to try and save it. And I don't know if you noticed, Chris, but when the explosion goes off, you see a skeleton for a second. Because again, Sam Raimi hates his character so much, he really wanted to make sure you knew he's dead. He is not coming back. We're done. And they atomize the Venom symbiote too. Although I guess we do have the portion of it that's off with Kurt Connors. We don't really explain where that went. What happened with that? That's not been burnt to a crisp, has it? So I guess there is still some Venom out
in a world where Harry survived that Green Goblin bomb, then I think he could come back. But yes.
Well, I don't think we could bring back Eddie Brock. We saw his skeleton. That's a dead man. Once you've ripped the flesh off someone's body to the point we see a skeleton, I don't really think you're able to. The Venom symbiote could make a comeback, but Eddie is definitely gone. Eddie is gone. So yeah.
If they wanted to, they could have brought him back in No Way Home, but I don't believe Topher Grace's return was ever in contention.
No, I suspect not. Which I kind of see. I genuinely is a shame because, and I already said this earlier in the podcast, but I want to reiterate this. I think Topher Grace is genuinely a good choice for this interpretation of Eddie, and I don't dislike this interpretation of Eddie. It is an amalgam of the original comic book one, the 90s cartoon, and the Ultimate Spider-Man Eddie. And I think it leans towards the Ultimate Spider-Man version of Eddie, which I know some people kind of hate. But for me, the idea of Eddie being a sort of dark shadow of Peter is a really interesting idea. He's also a photographer. Peter's got MJ. He thinks he's got Gwen, but he's a terrible person. She's not interested in him. He is so much Peter, but the shadow version, like the evil version, willing to cheat and lie and scramble his way through it. I love that as a premise. I genuinely do. And Topher Grace plays that perfectly. He is Shadow Tobey Maguire in this movie. He has clearly found that in his performance, and it's a really great idea. It really, really is. The movie lets him down for the reasons previously established, but I want to make it very clear. I would happily see Topher Grace come back to play this version of Eddie again. He is not the problem with this character and the execution of this character at all.
It's funny. I'm just looking up to see whether he's commented on it, because it's funny when you think about it, isn't it? They Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2 was hated and criticised, and they brought him back and just changed the character. But I feel like I say, Topher was probably never in contention. And I suppose, to be fair, Sony were releasing their own Venom movies at the time, weren't they? So they probably didn't want,
Yeah, you don't want.
They probably didn't want that. But
That's what I was going to say. I think that's the main reason he didn't come back, is just that they've established their own Venom now, and they don't want to undercut that. But yeah, look, overall thoughts. Look, I mean, you all know the problem. The movie's overstuffed. That's it. It's that simple. I think a version of this movie where they take out our villain, maybe two, focus on Spidey Sandman. Maybe we can do Harry as the side plot to that, where he comes in at the end and helps him beat Sandman. But we set up Venom for the next movie. It would have been much cleaner, much better, and probably a stronger movie. Obviously, a fourth movie never materialized, but a little bit to me, I think, had we done that, maybe there'd have been some more. Because obviously people love Venom. Venom is a big fan favorite. It's the reason the studio and famous Spider-Man reviewer Avi Arad pushed to have Venom in the movie. But so I wonder if the promise of Venom was enough to excite the fan base that they would have actually just made the fourth movie in the end. Because also this movie would have been better. Because one of the reasons the next movie doesn't happen is Sam Raimi is like frustrated with the studio and they're meddling. So I don't know. There's another world out there where that fourth movie happens and it is a Venom movie, and it probably was better for it. But yeah, it doesn't work.
I think you definitely. I think Venom is the one to take out or reduce, as you sort of outlined earlier. I do think there is a version of this movie that could work with just Sandman and Green Goblin. I don't think you need to remove both. And actually, I think a movie of just not Green Goblin, New Goblin, whatever they're called. I think a version of this movie that is just Goblin and Spider-Man is actually quite boring and would feel repetitive. But I think you absolutely could do the Sandman and New Goblin of it all. But it's, as it stands at the moment, it's just too much. Like I say, there is a benefit certainly in Acts 1 and 2 to that, in that I don't think you're bored, because it just goes at such an alarming pace. But it's the characters aren't developed. But there are, as we talked about earlier, some stunning moments within there.
Agreed. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up, because I don't have anything more to say on the movie. I think I'd understand somebody watching this if they're doing the trilogy, just sort of wrap it up. But I honestly think there's a better experience just watching the first two. But I totally get it. But yeah, my God, what a shame. I really was hoping to come in today to this podcast and be like, you know what? People are hard on this movie. It's better than you remember. But I think it's about as bad as I remember. Which is a strange thing to say. Usually opinions change over time, but I think it's pretty much as bad as I remember it being.
I think it's bad, but there is some merit, and I don't think it does. Like I said earlier, I think it deserves its reputation within the Spider-Man universe, and I would be intrigued to rewatch Amazing Spider-Man 2 and see, which is the worst of the films.
That would be very interesting.
But I don't think it necessarily deserves its reputation in the wider comic movie. But then again, maybe that I have seen love for this movie. Maybe I'm being unfair there. It probably isn't as renowned for being a bad movie as Fan Four Stick or some of the other ones mentioned earlier. But it's certainly. I think certainly has a reputation. Actually, I think it has the thing it most has a reputation for is studio interference and being overstuffed, which I absolutely do think it deserves that reputation. So maybe I've just talked myself out of that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think you summed it well. I think to say that it has some merits is true. I don't disagree with that statement at all. I guess the results may vary in terms of whether you feel that's whether those merits are enough to put up with the other elements of this movie or not that don't work and really.
Well, I think, like I said earlier, not in the not in the context of the movie on its own, but in the context of
the trilogy.
I've just rewatched the first two. Should I watch this one as well? I would say yes. There is enough merit for that.
Yeah, and for me, it's the because the conclusion is so unsatisfying. I don't think the merits outweigh how frustrating that ending is. Yeah, that's how. I think there you go. That's both of our play positions summed up. So yeah, check it out if you dare.
Yeah,
let's do the thing.
And
Chris.
now let's triv it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia. So, Sam Raimi wrote a treatment for Spider-Man 3 over like 2 months with his brother, and he really wanted to focus on this theme of morality in black and white, and Peter making bad choices and villains being capable of making good ones. And the early treatment did focus on Sandman because Raimi found him visually interesting. Sandman is often not a very complex character in the comic books, but almost that's kind of a perfect choice for a movie like this because it means Sam Raimi can sort of like flesh him out in his own way. I don't believe the sick daughter plot is from the comics. He's generally speaking a sort of goon for hire in the comics, to my knowledge. I can't recall a Sandman comic that has, a tragic backstory other than I got turned into this monster and now I'm angry, but I'm also for hire. So I like that choice. I think that's smart. They obviously brought Alvin Sargent on, who wrote the last movie, to turn that treatment into a script. And he had the contracted option to work on the fourth film with that contract. So in January 2005, they hired him to write this one with the option to extend to a fourth. As we talked about, producer Avi Arad, famous Spider-Man ruiner, does one of his most famous Spider-Man ruinings. He felt Raimi was too focused on the villains he found interesting and wasn't considering fan favorite villains, aka the fans are all foaming at the mouth for Venom. Why isn't Venom in a movie? So he put a lot of pressure on Raimi, but so did the studio. And it was a villain that Sam Raimi did not find particularly interesting. Eddie Brock was in the current script in a minor role, but there was no Venom, there was no black suit from what I could tell from the really earliest version of this. And eventually Raimi caved and tried to figure out a way to put Venom in the movie. I guess the suit, bringing out the worst in Spider-Man, really enhanced his good and bad plot, and he was able to find something in that. But he wasn't particularly interested in Venom, and I think that's clear in the final product. Now, there is some confusion about his hatred of Venom because he's not interested in this character. Venom's after his time, basically. The comics he read growing up. Venom wasn't introduced until the mid-'80s. So the comics he read growing up did not include Venom. So it wasn't part of his childhood, and he wasn't very passionate about the character. But that doesn't mean he outright thinks the character is meritless or anything like that. But what happened was, once they decided to put Venom in the movie, they decided to really play on that so that to keep it a secret. So there are lots of quotes from the early development to sort of mid to late development of this movie before Venom is revealed officially to be in it, where Sam Raimi is very, very particular and very deliberately no, I do not like the character. I will not use him in this movie. He will not be in subsequent films. He was very harsh in his wording, and that was to maintain the secret. So if you look at the timing on any quote from Sam Raimi about the Venom character, to get a more accurate one, do not look at quotes from early development of this movie to the reveal of Venom at San Diego Comic-Con, because those are deliberately dialed up to put people off the scent. Yeah, because I think there is a difference between not thinking the character is interesting and hating the character.
Did they not? But they revealed Venom in the trailer, right? By the time the trailer comes out.
The first teaser at San Diego Comic-Con revealed him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but there's a period of time when the movie's being shot and he's doing interviews and stuff, and he's talking up, not interested in Venom at all. And people sometimes cite those quotes as, look how much he hates the character. But again, there's a difference between, I don't find this character interesting, and I hate this character. I don't think there's any merit to them. So the character, as portrayed in the film, is sort of an amalgam, as I already mentioned, of the Amazing Spider-Man character, which is sort of focused on that obsessive journalist idea. The ultimate version, which is a sort of younger man and particularly interested in Gwen Stacy. The present, this was done to sort of show him as a, we talked about this already, kind of like a shadow Peter, which was, I think, a really smart move, and that's why they chose to do that. So an early draft of this script, when they decided they were going to include Venom, had a better way for the symbiote to show up, which is that John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's astronaut's son came back from a mission with the symbiote either attached to the ship or as a sample they brought back of something they found while they were out in space. To save time and money, this entire plot line was eliminated in favor of just a meteorite landing right next to him. But they do eventually go back to the space mission story for Venom, the 2018 movie. But instead, it's not Venom that comes in that. It's Riot, but that's a whole different storyline. And that's also how Venom came in the 90s animated show as well. Was in John Jameson's Space Shuttle. I think in the original comic, it's a Secret Wars thing. Spidey's off in space fighting the Beyonder and all those villains, and he's on a random planet because that's where the Beyonder has put them, and he finds the suit there and uses the powers, and then he turned up back in the comics after that in the black suit. And it was a good while. He was in that black suit for a long time before it started to corrupt him. It was really interesting. It was a real slow burn the way they did that in the original comics. So anyway, including Gwen Stacy was the suggestion of producer Laura Ziskin. She liked the idea of including the character, and they managed to make it work to varying degrees, depending on your opinion. At one point, Vulture was also going to be in this movie as an accomplice of Sandman's, and they had lined up Ben Kingsley to take the role. I'm glad that did not occur because, my God, there are already too many villains in this movie. So much so that with this many characters to juggle, Alvin Sargent considered splitting this into 2 movies. Now, listen to that instinct, is what I would go back in time and tell him. He chose not to in the end because he couldn't find a way with the story he had to create a satisfying climax in the middle of the story that would serve as the final act of the first part. He couldn't figure that out, so in the end he bowed out of that notion. I do wish they'd taken a breath and considered that more seriously, though, because it probably would have led to a better film.
Well, no, I think the breath and the more seriously should have been, if we're thinking that, what do we need to adjust to make it one movie? Because
yeah, that's true.
I can see where he's coming from. That is we have said multiple. We're now at a point where we're saying it about TV seasons, series that that is the problem with splitting something into, working out what that midpoint is and it being satisfying, and it not. How many times have we had like a part 1 and a part 2 of a movie in a modern day and gone, I mean, it just ends at the end. It just ends out of nowhere. It just ends so suddenly because of that problem. And I think you're right that it should be considered. But the thing to do is to go, okay, well, if we're considering that option, does this movie work on its own as one movie?
Yes, it's a really good point.
Probably not. What do we need to change?
Yeah, because there's an old thing of like the note behind the note. And for anyone who's not heard this before, sometimes studios give writers notes that seem strange, like include a talking dog or something like that. And you're like, well, that is obviously inherently, that's incorrect. I'm not going to put a talking dog in my movie. But the note behind the note is, what were they trying to address with that suggestion? And then you go, they think the movie needs more levity. Okay, I'm not going to include a talking dog, but I can probably change this or fix this to make it have the thing they're wanting. The note is inherently stupid. That solution isn't the correct solution. But the problem it was trying to address exists, right? And that's exactly what you're saying here. And I'd never even thought about that. You're right. By acknowledging that the movie was starting to feel like it was too much and that it might need to be split into 2, that's where you go, we've got too much in this movie and we need to figure out a way to reduce that. Instead of thinking, how do I split it? You're absolutely right. That's a good observation, because that proves they were aware of the problem and still barreled ahead, which is not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so alternate casting. An interesting little list of actresses for Gwen Stacy. And I say little list because it's 4 names that they're out there for this one. But I think all of them could have done it. Like, I wouldn't have changed it. But there are 4 pretty, especially these days, some of these are big names. Scarlett Johansson, Amanda Seyfried, Rachel McAdams, and Alicia Cuthbert. These are all pretty big names. Wow. If you'd have gotten in there. Absolutely. I like Bryce Dallas Howard in this role, and I don't know I would change it. But I think all of those actresses are talented enough to have made that work. Should I be in the reality where any of them got the role instead, I wouldn't be complaining. They're all really talented, so thumbs up.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No.
but it is it is very much. Bryce Dallas Harris does a lot with a little.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. She's great in this movie.
play to her.
Yeah, she's great. Now, not much alternate casting otherwise, because Thomas Hayden Church was Sam Raimi's first and only choice for Flint Marko. Like, he didn't consider anyone else, and it was purely based on the strength of his performance in Sideways, which is a great movie, and he is wonderful in. And he agreed to do this movie based on the pitch before a script had been completed. Oh, that's a mistake. Always get a script. But I guess, look, 2 successful movies in the can and a pitch that sounded interesting, about a villain with a tragic backstory, because of his daughter, and I can see how that was very enticing. And let's not,
absolutely,
let's not mince words here. There was probably quite a lot of money attached to that offer also.
I think given the success of the first 2 movies, who wouldn't be like, yeah, cool. Mm-hmm. It's like that famous Lawrence Fishburne quote about, like, in the press leading up to The Matrix Reloaded, where he was like, "This is the only time I've ever signed on without reading a script." And then the movie comes out and everyone's like, "Ooh, you probably should have waited for a script."
Yeah. Yeah. I reckon he'd even read the script, he'd have stuck around, because let me tell you, there's no way that movie didn't pay them a lot of money. But yes, I take your point.
But he in particular has nothing to do with that sequel, doesn't he?
No, that's true. Yeah, but even better, nothing to do and a paycheck. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, look, there's an artistic viewpoint, and then there's the business viewpoint. And I wouldn't blame any actor for being like, I'm barely in the movie, not really used a lot, not a challenging role for me, and they're going to pay me how much? Cool, signed. Like, I respect that.
That's Thomas Hayden Church with No Way Home, isn't it? It's like, and wait a sec, it's all voiceover. Fine, not a problem.
Well, I actually think that was we want you in the movie. Nah. What if we make it all voiceover? Okay. I think the voiceover thing came second. I think they wanted him in the movie originally, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I take your point on that one.
Shame. I think it's such a shame that him and Ralph, however you say his name, Ralph Fiennes, don't have scenes. Like, it's so awkward when they transform back, and it's so obviously.
Wait, no, it's Rhys Ifans, isn't it? Am I mixing up? It's Rhys Ifans, not Ralph Fiennes. Sorry, yeah, Rhys Ifans.
Yeah, Rhys Ifans. Anyway,
yes. So interestingly, I would love to tell you, Chris, about some alternate casting for Eddie Brock, because there's no indication that it was like Topher's my guy, the same way that Sam Raimi was very much on board with Thomas Hayden Church. But equally, no one has ever come out and been like, "Oh, I auditioned for that." So we don't have any alternate casting. So because I didn't want to do that twice in a row, Thomas Hayden Church and for Flint Marko and for Eddie Brock, I tracked down some old fan casting threads on Quora, whatever that website is called, and Reddit. And I've come up with some names that fans were talking about. And I just want to go through a few, because I think some of them are interesting. One of them is Dolph Lundgren. Now, that is physique only. That is madness to me. That would not be a good take on the character. It'd be a different take for this take anyway. He wouldn't fit in this script. But even if we were doing a more traditional version of Venom, was Dolph Lundgren not too old by this point? How old was he in 2006? Like, no. I don't think that works at all. He's got the physique. And he's obviously, but let me check. Age 98. Let me see. How old was he in that point? Yeah, he was 49 years old. I feel that might have been too old to play Eddie Brock.
That's too old.
And I don't want to be ageist about it, but I just don't think that works.
Yeah, that's definitely too old.
Another suggestion was Jake Gyllenhaal, because obviously, if we're going to do a dark mirror of Toby's character, the guy that nearly replaced him in the previous movie seems like a fun choice. Another name that came up a lot is Sam Witwer, who had voiced the character in lots of video games and stuff. I think that's just fans being a bit unrealistic. You're not going to get the voice guy from the video games and cartoons to like be the character in the big live action movie. Unfortunately, studios just don't think that way. I'm not saying anything about whether he would have been good or bad in the role. I don't know, but studios would never have taken a risk on that. Just never. The other names that I saw coming up a fair bit were Paul Walker, David Boreanaz, and Freddie Prinze Jr. I like all three of those, potentially. I don't think I like any of them better than Topher, but they are really interesting choices.
Yeah, I think Freddie Prinze would have done a very similar thing to Topher. The one
agree.
I would be intrigued to see what they would have done would be Paul Walker.
Sure.
Which you just sort of imagine, you assume would have a bit more grit to it, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Casting is not this movie's problem, so
No.
I'm okay with what we got.
Yeah, agreed. I did see one, I assume, time traveler who suggested Tom Hardy and in a post in like 2006. And I'm like, that's crazy. Because this is before Tom Hardy had even done like Bronson. He was mildly known, but he wasn't like famous yet. And there was a guy like, oh yeah, Tom Hardy would be good. I'm just like, that's so funny. You've clearly traveled from the future. Yeah.
Although Tom Hardy, and maybe he just was then as well. Tom Hardy is one of those actors that is suggested for everything.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, 1 second, that was a lot of noise all of a sudden. I don't know what just happened. We got a bit of a storm here that's swept in. I think it was just rattling the windows in my room, and it just sounded like somebody banging against them. Okay. One thing I will say is that I do know Freddie Prinze Jr. was sort of actively campaigning to be in these Spider-Man movies in some form or another. He talked about it a lot. He was a big fan. So, I wonder if that also played an impact in why he was suggested for the role. Anyway, the role goes to Topher Grace.
Probably him suggesting it.
Yeah. It was the guy was called Freddie Prinze is my hero at AOL.com on Quora in 2006. It's just really Freddie Prinze. Can I say, controversial thing? I love Freddie Prinze Jr. I think he's good. I think he gets a bad rap. I like Freddie Prinze Jr. a lot. I think he's a better actor than people give him credit for. Controversial opinion, I think. So Topher Grace left that 70s show to be in this movie. That's why he's not in those final seasons. And to prepare for the role of Venom, he worked out strictly for 6 months, gaining 24 pounds of muscle. And then he when designing his performance, he liked the idea of basing it on the behaviors of alcoholics and drug addicts. People who deny their choices are unhealthy and that you push on anyway. And I think that comes through. I think he's giving a really good performance in this movie for what's there on the page. He was also a Venom fan since childhood. The comic book, he said, this is a quote from him, the comic book I was a bigger fan of in the late 80s was Venom, the character I play. This is a quote from an interview during the press tour for this movie. And he said, a character born from the great Todd McFarlane, who revolutionized comic books at the time. I felt like when they offered me the role, I had the inside track. And I had to sit on my hands and not say yes too quickly because I hadn't negotiated my deal yet. But all I wanted to say was, yes, I'll pay you to do this. He's such a big fan of Venom and Todd McFarlane is credited as kind of the creator of Venom. For those who aren't familiar, he's the comic book artist. He likes to draw very gothic, dark things. He invented and created the Spawn character, for example, and he was primarily the lead artist on the Spider-Man comics when he I assume he was the writer too, actually, when Venom sort of became a character. So he sort of is the father of Venom in that way. He sort of created and designed the character. And Topher Grace has a signed comic from Todd McFarlane. That's how much of a fan he is. And that was being cast, So yeah, he was clearly a big fan. So I got to imagine he was very disappointed with how this turned out and that he never got to do it again and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a shame that it worked out the way it did. For those who aren't familiar, the black suit that Spider-Man wears in the comic is just a pure black suit. It isn't got like webbing on it or lines or anything like that. It's just got the single white spider on the chest. They tried to create that for this movie. But in testing, it looked, unfortunately, way too much like a BDSM gimp suit. No matter how they lit it, it just looked like that, no matter what they did. So in the end, they replaced it with sort of a blackened version of the suit he'd worn in the previous two movies. So like darker, but still with the raised webbing and the other design elements from that. And I think it looks great. It really does look good.
I was going to say we've not said this. It does look fucking cool.
Yeah. It's a great design. I've got to say, and as someone who's talked about how the black suit and Venom, that storyline is one of my favorite things. From Spider-Man. Arguably, Venom is my favorite Spider-Man villain. I should arguably be going, it's so different, boo, but it's just so well executed. Like, yeah, it's different, but it's still really good. It's a really cool design. Like, no complaints from me, none at all. So yeah. Big fan of that, and loved how that worked. So the movie shot in January 2006. They started in Culver City, California, and then in April they moved to Cleveland, Ohio, because the movie was costing too much money, and the local film commission had offered them free location space to shoot, and that's where they shot the armored car fight. Because shooting in New York was costing them all of the money. Shooting in New York was costing them over $1 million a day, which is just absurd.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's too much money. So they didn't shoot in Manhattan for very long. They did a month in Manhattan. They did like 3-4 weeks. So just over 100 days of production, they wrapped up in July. When they shot the scene of Spidey punching Sandman through the chest, they actually hired somebody called Baxter Humby, who is a amputee boxer. Or congenital amputee boxer, which I guess means he lost his hand in the womb. I guess that's what that means. And basically, he then put his sort of like the point in which his arm ends up to Flint Marko in the Spider-Man suit, up to the actor's chest, and then it looked like the hand had gone through. That's quite a clever solution to that visual effect.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Here you go. Humby, who was born without his right hand, delivered the intended effect of punching through Sandman's chest. There you go. On May 4th, 2007, while promoting the film on The Tonight Show, Thomas Hayden Church revealed that he broke 3 knuckles during the subway fight scene when he went to punch Spider-Man and hits the chunk of wall. What happened... This is typical of a... sort of older movie. We know we've noticed a trend of injuries on movie sets, and the older they get, the more frequent and serious they seem to be. But basically, the effects crew had told Church that the middle brick was fake. So the brick above it, the brick below it were real. Don't punch those. But there's a foam brick in the middle. Hit that. The problem was the props department hadn't actually put the foam brick in yet, and Sam Raimi called action. Church spins around and punched the real brick with full force and broke his knuckle. He broke 3 knuckles. So 3 of the 4 bones on that hand. And that was the first take.
That's the first take of the scene, or the first take he did of the whole
punch
movie?
No, of the punch. The first take of that punch shot. So I don't know what happened. I assume they stopped production for several days, filmed other stuff, and then came back to it. But fuck it hell, that sounds awful. Another one that's not great, but is no one's fault. Bryce Dallas Howard performed her own stunts during the crane action sequence. And it turned out later she was actually pregnant at the time of filming, but did not know this yet. Obviously not great, but she didn't know. Nothing you can do about that. Sad, but and I will say,
no, of course, if she didn't.
As far as I'm aware, baby born fine, no problems, no accidents. Just an interesting bit of trivia. This trivia does not take a dark twist. Everyone was okay. While in the Venom costume,
I'd like to think if there was some sort of dark twist to a piece of trivia like that, you just wouldn't do it. You'd just be like, well, we're leaving that.
Yeah. If it was that dark, yeah, probably. Yeah. I'm probably not doing deceased baby triv, if I'm being honest with you, Chris. I think I'm avoiding this. I'm laughing because it's horrible to think about. You laugh so you don't cry. Moving on. Interestingly, we talked about in the last movie that Tobey Maguire had made some requests for the suit to be adjusted to allow him to go to the bathroom without having to take the whole thing off. Topher Grace did not get given that grace, pun fully intended. He didn't have any way without taking the entire costume off to pee. So what ended up happening was he got quite dehydrated because he was choosing to not drink water during breaks, because drinking water would then lead to going to the bathroom, and that would be a whole thing. Look, that's not great. That someone needed to do something. And I know you don't want to be the guy that complains. Do you know what I mean? As an actor, you want to be amenable, but there's a point when you're damaging yourself and probably shouldn't be. That sounds deeply unpleasant, dehydrating yourself on purpose. So, what a shame that worked out that way. But yeah, there you go. That ends our some of the things on this movie led to people being hurt segment. Thomas Hayden Church. We got fucking Eddie Brock's rolling around dehydrated, and fucking Sandman's broken his knuckles. Do you know what I mean?
That is bad.
It is bad. Anyway, composer Danny Elfman did not return to provide music for this film, following his creative differences and full-on fight with, not physical fight, but argument with Sam Raimi from the first movie. So instead they brought in Christopher Young, who composes this film's score. Now, there are some stories that Christopher Young actually worked with Danny Elfman secretly when Sam Raimi wasn't there. When he was writing the music, he would, like, because I guess they know each other, he was like calling Elfman and being, getting advice and help and some tips about how to compose the music for this movie. I don't think that's been confirmed anywhere, but sure, that makes perfect sense to me. If Elfman is a buddy with Christopher Young, and his objection is to working with Sam Raimi, I don't see any reason he wouldn't help his mate out and be like, oh yeah, you should try this or do this or whatever. I actually think, considering the loss of, one of the most prolific composers in film history, in Danny Elfman, I've got to say, Christopher Young does a great job in this movie. The two pieces of music particularly that hit me really hard is the piece of music when Sandman is coming together. It's just beautiful. It's tragic and beautiful and sad and elegant and it's all the things it needs to be. But I also love that music, that Spider-Man doing evil shit music, the big horn one that's like da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, that plays every time Peter Parker does something over the top. It's fucking great. It's so good. It's exactly in line with the music from the previous movies, but it's its own new thing, and it's really distinct. And I always think of that piece of music when I'm watching this. When I think of this movie, that music comes to my brain very quickly. It's very iconic, I think, and scores the film really well. So hats off to Christopher Young, who had big boots to step into. Again, Danny Elfman, one of the most prolific composers in film history, certainly one of the most famous. I wouldn't want to be the guy that follows Danny Elfman, to be honest with you.
No, not at all. Jeez.
So yeah, and
Absolutely
I think
not.
he did a great job. So apparently for Sandman's theme, it was composed with 2 contrabass saxophones and 2 contrabass clarinets. There's also 2 bassoons and a very low French horn, which they decided made it sound heavy and aggressive, which they thought worked out for Sandman. Venom's theme was meant to sound vicious and demonic and used 8 French horns. My God, that's too many French horns. He held back with Sandman. 2 bassoons, 2 clarinets, 2 French horns. Venom's here. 8 French horns. I take it back, Christopher Young. You're a madman. That's too many. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm kidding.
I don't know. No, I'm gonna defend that. I'm gonna contradict you again. Venom's scared of sound. I think the over excessive French horns represents that.
I agree. I was kidding, of course. I have no idea if 8 French horns is too many French horns. I just was just being silly. There were a bunch of scenes that were shot, but never, didn't make it into the movie, but did make it onto the DVD, including a montage of Peter in his black suit taking down criminals and leaving them strung up. Tons of sort of character-focused moments, like a confrontation scene between Captain Stacy and Eddie Brock. When Gwen dumps him at her father's house, like Eddie Brock turns up to Gwen's house and she's like, "We're not dating," and then Captain Stacy yells at him. That I think would have helped the movie, but is not there. There's also a brilliant moment that I have seen. It's Peter looking in the mirror in his house, and he sees like a flash of a nightmarish vision of the Venom symbiote, giving a hint of what it could become. It's kind of ripped almost directly from the 90s cartoon, the shot, and it's great. And it's not that long, and I kind of wonder why that's not in the movie, because I think that's kind of haunting and good. So yeah, bit of a shame that those scenes didn't make it into the final film, but if anyone's interested, they were on the DVD, and you could probably YouTube them at this point. There is, in Harry's lab, there is obviously his father's Green Goblin mask, but there's also a gold one, which sort of, like people say it's a hobgoblin mask. And here's the thing, right? Gold is the sort of colour of the hobgoblin, that sort of yellowy, orangey gold colour. But that's a bit thin. That's a bit thin. I don't think that was really what that was supposed to be. I think it was just supposed to be, look, there's a prototype or an alternate colour one. I don't know if they were going, oh, it's the hobgoblin. But, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that was a deliberate reference to the Hobgoblin, who obviously never makes an appearance in any Spider-Man film to date. Oh my, we've never done Hobgoblin. That's crazy. That's
Wasn't there
actually
rumours or
clever.
theories that Ned was going to become Hobgoblin?
Well, in the comics, I believe Ned Leeds is one of the Hobgoblins as a character. But the problem is the movies have done something different with Ned Leeds. So Ned Leeds as a character is not... So what Ned Leeds is a problem because what they've done is they've taken Miles Morales' sidekick, a character called... He's called Geki or something. What's it? One second. Miles Morales. I never know how to pronounce the name of his friend. It's like Gendy or something like that. What's he called? Genki. He's his Genki Lee. Genki Lee. So Genki Lee is Miles Morales' guy in the chair, right? And he looks a bit like the movie version of Ned Leeds, but the Ned Leeds in the comics doesn't look like the movie version of Ned Leeds. So they've taken the name of a Peter Parker Spider-Man character and the function and appearance of a Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man character, and they've smushed them together. I don't know why. Couldn't he have just been Genki? Strange to me, but whatever. Because the problem is now, if you do ever set up a Miles movie, he won't have Genki without it just being Ned. It will just feel like Ned. So you've got they've stripped something from Miles for future movies. That will bite them on the ass eventually. But yes, the comic book Ned Leeds, who is very different from the movie Ned Leeds, does turn out to be the Hobgoblin. I'm not sure you could get away with turning this Ned Leeds into the Hobgoblin. Because he's such a different character. Although I'd love it. I mean, go for it. Like, why not, right? Give me something new and interesting.
But it would certainly link back to that moment in No Way Home where Maguire talks about Harry, which is a great moment. And that's just like,
oh, okay. Yes! Yeah, there's a brilliant one. My best friend tried to kill me, and then there's a moment when Tom Holland's Peter Parker and Ned Leeds exchange a look. That's true. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's great.
That's my favorite bit of that is Ned says something like, "Just so you know, I'm never going to turn into an evil villain and try and kill you." And Tom Holland's character is like, "Okay." And then my favorite bit of it is Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man gives Ned this kind of like, "Yeah, good job," like thumbs up type face, brilliant. Which is just brilliant.
Yeah, I've got to rewatch that movie. I might rewatch the Home trilogy in the build-up for. I know I just watched 3 Spider-Man movies and I'm watching Spider-Noir. Maybe that's too much Spider-Man, but I am tempted to rewatch the Home trilogy in the leading up to Brand New Day. But we'll see. Anyway, there's a lot going on right now. I don't have fun time. So yeah, there's a mask in this that some people think is the Hobgoblin mask. I'm not as convinced. It's a bit thin, but sure, why not? Could be. This was sadly Cliff Robertson's final film before he passed away at the age of 88. Here, the actor that played Uncle Ben. He's glorious in these movies, and he gets new scenes in this movie, which is fun. They brought him back for some extra dialogue. It's just nice to see Uncle Ben. And I think his scenes with the Sandman are actually quite good. I like that they do 2 versions of it. I love this idea that like Peter imagines it one way, and then we get the real version later and we see it again played out correctly. I think that's quite reasonably well handled. You know, if you're going to do that, show it to me, I suppose, rather than just tell me it happened. So yeah, and they got to bring back Cliff Robertson, who, you know, everyone loves. Great Uncle Ben. So yeah, 10 points. Yeah. We already talked about this, but Kirsten Dunst had all the screams recycled from Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. She wasn't doing it again. Totally fair. I think she was right to be angry about the way this movie played out for her, and that change. We talked about in the last movie, speaking of Mary Jane, that in Peter's apartment he had the picture he took of Mary Jane in the science exhibit from the first movie on one of his like desks or something. In this movie, it's way more prominently featured because it's right next to his police scanner. So every time there's a shot of the police scanner, you can see that picture way more prominent than you could in the previous movie, but it is still there. Venom's sound design, the noise of him, screeching and stuff, there's some Tasmanian devil in there. The creature, the Tasmanian devil, the real one, not Taz, the Looney Tunes character. I was going to say. Yeah.
I was thinking of Taz from Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Who is supposed to be a Tasmanian devil, which is a creature that actually exists in Australia in an island called Tasmania. That's why he's called the Tasmanian devil. But he doesn't go. Instead it's an actual creature, an animal that exists. So yeah, that's fun. The animators at Sony Pictures based his movements on big cats like tigers and panthers and stuff. And again, this all leans into just the wrong idea about Venom. Like animal sounds, animal movements, incorrect. No, just wrong, fully wrong. Anyway, according to Bryce Dallas Howard, this blew me away. Right, according to Bryce Dallas Howard on the DVD commentary, the actor who plays the photographer during the crane scene once performed magic at her birthday party in the 2nd grade. So she gets on the set of this movie, and in this movie, Gwen Stacy is in a photo shoot when she first shows up. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah, I remember that scene because I remember being like, I don't think we've established Gwen Stacy enough for she's a model side plot. Like,
sure, right, agreed. Yeah. I thought that too. But sure, so she's a model. She gets on set. She turns around. She's the actor portraying the photographer, and realizes, "Didn't you do magic at my 2nd grade birthday party?" And the answer is, yes, he did.
Right.
That's just a crazy coincidence, and I fucking love that.
Yeah, because I suppose the craziness is like he's an actor, but also a magician. Like,
yeah. On the side,
I don't find it too crazy that, because we're not talking. It's not like Bryce Dallas Howard had necessarily a relative to say you or I a normal childhood.
Sure.
The notion that her dad Ron Howard might have hired someone that would then go on to do Hollywood movies to be a magician doesn't seem that outlandish. But yes, the coincidence of them then meeting again in that circumstance is kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree. I can skip this one. We talked about it already. It's MJ wasn't supposed to be in the fight scene. We talked about that. She wasn't supposed to be in the taxi. Okay, so we move on to I Can't Believe It's Trivia. Now, my promise for this is that the week I don't see one in the IMDb trivia, and this is a segment where we have a thing where we're just like, how is that trivia? And the deal is, the week I don't see one is the week this segment dies. I'm promising that because Cars Exist has gotten out of hand. I'm not having it happen twice. But this week, Chris, I thought it was done. I went through the trivia, and as far as I could tell, there wasn't anything that I was like, why is this trivia? And then I realised my eyes had scooted over something. And I thought, that's unusual. Why did I just not read this trivia, Chris? And I'll tell you the answer. It's because it's the same piece of trivia from last week. And it's the same, I can't believe it's trivia, which is that Joey King's favourite superhero is Spider-Man, and she would later be in a movie called Oz the Great and Powerful with James Franco, who was in a Spider-Man movie. Now, here's the thing about this, Chris. Not only is that one of the fucking shittest piece of trivias you could do, and it's perfect for I Can't Believe It's Trivia, the person who added that to the IMDb trivia for the 2nd Spider-Man movie felt the need to also add it to the 3rd one, exactly the same phrasing. The fuck is wrong with this person?
Did you then explore whether they're just like a big Joey King fan?
Well, you can't see it. You can't. It's not. So on the Internet Movie Car database, anyone who posts something, you can click on their profile, see what else they've posted. But the trivia on IMDb is like submitted and voted up, but it doesn't say posted by, Joey King fan 97. Like it does no information. Like so, it's exactly worded the same. So I have to assume the same guy just submitted it. I don't remember seeing it in the Spider-Man 1 trivia, hilariously, which is kind of funny. I should check that actually. Maybe I missed it on the first one too, because there was a lot for Spider-Man 1, obviously. You know what I mean? Like that. Maybe I just literally. I'm gonna bring it up and I'm gonna do a quick Control F search to see if you put it in all 3. But I find it really weird that this person put this trivia in twice. Can't get over that. Also, it is just genuinely terrible trivia. That's just why I can't believe that's considered trivia. That a random person who likes Spider-Man later got to work with James Franco. It's just not anything.
Yeah, I'd understand. I'd understand if she was connected to these movies in any way, but she's not.
Yeah, I mean, not in a way that I can find anyway. Look, maybe we're gonna get comments. Maybe Joey King is like in these movies somehow. Don't think so though. Let me find out though.
Joey King's too. Unless I'm thinking of the wrong person. Joey King's the actress from like the Kissing Booth, and she was in that Uglies film that Netflix did. Have I got the right person? Surely she's too.
Fuck it out. No,
young.
It's in the trivia for the first one too. Is it the trivia for the first one? So there you go. Again, I don't know much about Joey. Let me see. Let me just make sure she's not in one of these movies. I'm not a crazy person. Here we go. Joey King. Sure. Actress.
No, she was born in 1999. She would have been too young, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah. So what the fuck is going on here?
Oh, she was in Crazy Stupid Love. We've seen that.
We have seen that. We've seen that for this. You're right. She was also in Calls. That's good. I like Calls. I wouldn't have recognised that. That would have just been a voice role, I presume. Because no one's face was in Calls. No, she couldn't have been in this movie. She was acting at that point, though. She was acting at the age of this, but she was just like, there's no role for her in this movie because she's a child. She was in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. She was in Jericho. I loved Jericho. That was a great show. Oh, she's in the movie Quarantine in 2008, 1 year after this. But no, not in this movie. So there you go. That is just, why is that trivia? I don't know. Yes! Oh, okay. Listeners, you do not understand. This entire podcast, and I mean this entire podcast, which is tipping towards 3 hours. We've got 20 minutes before it's that, but we're tipping that way. There's been a fly buzzing into my face, and I keep trying to swat it away quietly. This entire podcast, nearly 2.5 hours of driving me insane. I just got it.
Nice.
I'm so happy.
But that's not, we got to be under 3. Let's not be too jubilant.
Well,
congratulations. I'm pleased for you.
I'm so
well
happy.
done.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do box office.
Yeah.
So producer Avi Arad regretted forcing Venom's inclusion in this movie, explaining, "I think we learned that Venom is not a sideshow. In all fairness, I'll take the guilt because of what Sam used to say in all of these interviews. I feel guilty that I forced him into it. And you know what I learned? Don't force anybody into anything." Go fuck yourself, Avi Arad. You should have known that before you started making movies. That's a really obvious lesson to learn. And I will say, it's very clear that Sam Raimi has no interest in this character with the way he's used in the movie. Speaking of that, Sam Raimi...
absolutely is.
Yeah. He went on the Nerdist podcast in 2014. Nerdist podcast with Chris Hardwick. And he said, it's a movie that just didn't work very well. I tried to make it work, but I didn't really believe in all the characters. If the director doesn't love something, it's wrong for them to make it when so many other people love it. I think raising the stakes after Spider-Man 2 was the thinking going into it, and I think that's what doomed us. I should have stuck with the characters and relationships and progressed them to the next step and not tried to top the bar. Chris Hardwick tried to, be nice and say he didn't think the movie was bad, or that bad wasn't the right way to describe it, to which Sam Raimi replied, "No, awful is a better choice."
Well, fair play to Sam Raimi for owning it and taking ownership and not taking the easy out he's been given of other people, as you've just said, literally saying it wasn't Sam's fault. Like he sounds like he's handled that very maturely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because he could have said, "Yeah, the studio forced this and forced that, and my movie would have been as it was would have been great." But he's totally taken it on himself as the director. He understands that at the end of the day, those choices stop with him. So yeah, it's very good. He did hope a fourth movie would make up for it, and the planning for the fourth film was well underway. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, you can look up this stuff, but there's like script samples and storyboards for the next movie. It seemed to focus on the Vulture, who was going to be played by John Malkovich. John Malkovich was going to play the Vulture, and that seems to have all been ready to happen. There was going to be we even know who Bruce Campbell was going to play. There was going to be a sequence at the beginning of the movie where Spider-Man brought in Mysterio to the police station, having caught him, and the helmet comes off and it's Bruce Campbell is Mysterio, which I think was sort of meta supposed to imply that that maybe it was the same character in the other movies, but I don't know how much of that they were going to actually do. That would have
been phenomenal.
Yeah, but
that would have been brilliant.
Yeah, so Bruce Campbell was going to be sort of like a sort of a Spidey beats him in the first act sort of fun villain, which I think is somewhat what we're going to do with Scorpion in the upcoming Spider-Man movie. Particularly like the Tarantula, and there's a bunch of random Spider-Man villains that appear to be in this movie. And I reckon they're part of like an early sequence where he beats a bunch of villains. Sort of Z tier. I think Scorpion is more important because Scorpion appears to be in the scene where he's character stuff. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is that was the plan. You can see this work. There was clearly a real push for it. I mean, John Malkovich as the Vulture. Oof, That's a good bit of casting. I'm sad that the movie never happened. Basically, Raimi withdrew from the process after ongoing disputes with Avi Arad and Sony, and that sort of killed the fourth installment. Without Sam Raimi, I think Sony felt that pursuing a fourth Maguire film was maybe a bad idea. I think they rightly understood that Raimi was a big part of the tone and why those movies were so beloved and worked. So the choice was made to reboot the franchise instead. But let's talk about money. Let's talk about this movie's money. So it was budgeted and greenlit at $250 million. It actually came in, officially speaking, at $258 million. That's the number we're going to be going with. The official budget of this movie is $258 million. But, there is strong rumours of some shenanigans here. They produced special technology, because when they started designing this movie, the technology to do Sandman visually with CGI didn't exist. So they had to invent that technology, and that apparently cost a huge amount of money to do it, and do it fast. Also, the movie went way over budget in New York, shooting in New York. There were also extensive reshoots. James Franco said after a test screening, sort of complained about the movie's lack of action. They went back to shooting for even more time to do more action scenes. With all this in mind, industry insiders have speculated the real final tab of this movie's production budget is $350 million, which would have made it the most expensive movie ever made, pipping Pirates of the Caribbean, whichever one cost $300 million of those. But because they were able to say, well, we were developing that technology as a separate thing, and there was some Hollywood accounting seems to have occurred here, because the official figure remains $258 million as the budget. So we're going to go on that figure, even though some probably spent more. So yeah, they spent $258 million to make the movie, and it brought in $887 million, making it the most profitable of this trilogy.
I was going to say, that's more than the last film.
Yeah, I should let me rephrase that, sorry. Not the most profitable, but the highest grossing. That's a very big clarification. Because the first movie was made for like $100 million and made like $700 million or something like that. So like the first movie was the most profitable, but this one made the most in box office of the three. Yeah, just shy of $900 million. Yeah, you wouldn't have... And I double-checked that, because my impression was this movie was a bit more of a failure, but nope.
Yeah. That was, I think, because it was so critically, such a critical failure. Yeah. You just assume. But then, like you say, I remember the talk of Spider-Man 4, which wouldn't have happened if this hadn't been a box office success. So it makes sense, but it's definitely... Yeah, I don't think that's in people's memory. No one's guessing if they say, which was the highest earning in terms of the number. You wouldn't guess Spider-Man 3, I don't think.
No, you wouldn't. And I would also say as well, like it actually makes me a little bit respect Sony's decision not to run this into the ground and try to reboot it even more. And arguably, rebooting it is an attempt to run it into the ground. But there's a certain amount of respect for what Raimi did here, that when he left, they just went, right, we're back to zero then. We're starting with a new cast and a new creative team, and we're doing a reboot. Because the temptation to just, cast Toby, find a new director, and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace it must have been tempting, because these movies just kept making more and more money. Like, it's, you know what I mean? $887 million isn't far off a bill. Not many movies were making a billy in those days. So, you gotta... I respect the restraint to not just barrel on, to be honest with you. But there you go. So that's the money. The highest grossing of the three. Not the most profitable because of how much money they spent making it. And I presume they spent an absolute boatload of money marketing it as well. I remember this movie being fucking everywhere when it was coming out. All that was true of all three, I suppose. But so let's talk Cars Exist, Chris. It's time. Let's do it.
Meow. Meow.
Very good. I like it. So, the taxi that MJ is suspended in during the final sequence is a 2008 generation Chevrolet Impala, the GMX 210. I was surprised to hear that the Chevy Impala was used as a taxi in New York, so I double checked, and that is true. They did, but it's a modern-ish one. It's a 2000s one, and I'll be honest with you, I've had a look at it. It's not a great looking car. It's not the classic 70s Chevy Impala that's all cool and stuff. It's a modern Chevy Impala that's quite boring to look at. It's not a good. It's not a great car. I'm sure it runs great if you're sort of but like as a visual, I don't think it's a good design. Anyway, that's what they used, and apparently there were taxis made from that, and police cars too. Apparently, the 8th generation Chevy Impala police cars and taxis. Sam Raimi's famous 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88, known as the Classic, managed to feature again through the flashback sequence because obviously Uncle Ben drove that car and he's in front of that car when he's shot. So we got it. We got it into this movie too. So it's in all three, which is good to know. So there we go. That is it. We did it, Chris. We did it, and we did it in what, 2 hours and what? No.
Well, it's pointless, Dan. You working out the time because it's not it. We're not done.
There's more Spider-Man things. I know we have you've got to choose the next movie. I understand, but we did the review.
No, you set me.
I gave you homework.
You said
I gave you homework.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
You know what's annoying about that, Chris? Is 10 minutes before we recorded, I said to Nadia, I'm quite excited because Chris has done some homework and I really want to know what the answer is because I bet he's gone full throttle on it because you were quite interested in it last week and I had a feeling you'd go deep. And I completely forgot once we were actually recording.
I've gone fairly deep. I've mainly explored, my logic was if a song is clickable on Wikipedia, it potentially got released as a single and there would be a video associated with it.
That's fair.
I've not searched in YouTube for every single song on all three soundtracks. But the task was how many music videos featured official Spider-Man footage.
Yes.
The answer to that, Dan, is 9 across the 3 films. Yeah. Would you like to guess how that breaks down across the 3 movies?
I'm going to guess 2 from the first movie. No, 3 from the first movie. Oh, that'll make it 3, and I think the second movie is 4. So I'm going to say 3, 4, 2.
It is 2, and then 5.
There are none from this?
From this. No. Sorry, wait, no, that's not right. That maths isn't right. There's 2 from the first movie, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the second movie.
Fuck me.
So I'll go through them.
Crazy.
So no, the only song I could find from this was Signal Fire, and there isn't footage of Spider-Man in that. It is the video is about kids putting on a Spider-Man play. I think it's a really good video. I don't know what you thought of it, but there is no actual footage from the film in the video.
I would be tempted to sort of count that on the grounds that it is a Spider-Man. Because what I was talking about with Nadia as well today was the racket of this, because it is a racket. Let's not pretend it wasn't. Sony were getting essentially like marketing. So Sony owned a lot of this music, right? Because Sony had a music division or whatever. They were gathering artists they were already working with and essentially putting together like compilation albums. In the UK, we had these albums back in the day called like Now 56, Now 57, and they were just like albums of the day's various hits. But what Sony seemed to have been doing was it was proper corporate synergy. Just gather a bunch of songs they already had some element of rights to, sticking them on an album, putting them out, cheaper music video because they're on the Spider-Man soundtrack. You can put footage from the Spider-Man movie into the music video to make it cheaper. You can sell it on the grounds of it's the soundtrack of movies, songs about the movie, but actually it's just your songs, and it's like a compilation CD. And it was like such a clever thing. While it doesn't quite fit our exact definition of does the video include scenes and footage from the movie, it is a Spider-Man related video, so I would be tempted to include it even though it doesn't quite fit the rules I myself laid out last week. That does sort of fit for me. So how does that? How many in total does this bring it to?
If we're including Signal Fire, 10.
Wow.
So the two from the first movie are Hero by Chad Kroeger featuring Josie Scott.
Yes, an Invisible Man.
Who didn't go on to do a film with James Franco. Yes. No, The Invisible Man, I could not find a video I couldn't find an official video for that song.
Okay. Yes.
I don't believe. Sure. Who was that by again? Theory of a
Dead Man.
Dead Man?
Yeah, Theory of a Dead Man.
Let me just double check, but I could not see that there was an official music video for that song. I could only see a lyric video come up. Or like a Spider-Man tribute, which seemed to be, fan edited. So the other one is Sum 41. So Sum 41's what we're all about,
right? Which I know that video. I can see that video because it's like they're in a rooftop party, and it's sort of the camera pans up through the floor to reveal them. I think I've got a visual in my head of that.
Yeah, and they're
like
to be
stomping
fair,
on the floor.
I didn't think. Yeah, there's not much. Like, you scan through it and it's easy to miss the footage, but it is there, and there is a fair bit at the end. And then we get into Spider-Man 2, which has Dashboard Confessional Vindicated, yes. Train, Ordinary, Anna Johnson, We Are, Killing Heidi, I Am. This did contain footage. Strings, Nanya Kun. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. Petike, Chose do Cos Maz, official Spider-Man music video. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. Edane, Cry Out. And then obviously if we're counting Signal Fire as well. I will say the visuals, let me just send it to you now for you to like, because obviously I've seen a lot of music videos incorporating Spider-Man 2 footage, and the way it's done in this Cry Out video is like really interesting. Like, it's some cool visuals. I will send it to you now, Dan. You don't need to like hear the audio, but you can see the visuals just in the background maybe as we chat. Yeah. But like, yeah, it's done quite effectively. And it kind of is, and you might think at first, like, is there actually footage? But there is, like, the train sequences in there later and stuff like that.
Oh, it's quite. I'm already impressed. Video. The way that it's like panels and it's flickering between Spider-Man and that's quite visually interesting.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's done well.
That is done well.
So yeah, there you go. There are including Signal Fire. There are 9 music videos centered around this Spider-Man.
The one point Nadia made as well,
10.
which I forgot about, was obviously this is the era of music video TV as well, like channels that just loop music videos. And it's occurred to me that also these songs act as an advert for the movie too. Like, you don't know Spider-Man's coming out, but you see Dashboard Confessional's Vindicated video. You're like, oh, there's another Spider-Man movie coming out. Like, I could see that happening. This video is really cool, by the way, though, this one you sent.
It's really cool, isn't it? Yeah. And I've, like I say, I've seen them all, and this one's cool. I don't think I listened to this with audio. Like, at that point, I was just like, I just hadn't turned the volume up on my computer when I was doing this. But
there you go.
I can't speak to the song. But in terms of where we're going next, Dan, we are not quite classic era for Rewind reviews, but within that ballpark. We were teenagers for this movie.
Okay.
But we are exploring, does it hold up? This is very much everyone in our generation loved this movie when it came up. Does it hold up under scrutiny? Let's find out. So next week we will be looking at The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Or next series will open with The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Great choice. Yeah, I'm up for that. Very exciting. And I tell you what we can actually do is because I think we can probably say this now as well. I've already decided what we're doing after that. And I guess we can sort of say very rare can we tease people with the first 2 movies video series, but why not? I'm the one after is on the 3rd of November. It comes out, I think. So I'm choosing the only movie I'm aware of that really deals into Bonfire Night as a weird British holiday and idea. We're talking about V for Vendetta. So that's going to be The 40-Year-Old Virgin followed by V for Vendetta. That's how we're opening our next series. We haven't decided on a trilogy yet, and that trilogy is really early in that series because otherwise it breaks up by Christmas. So we need to think about that soon too. But I'm excited about that, man. 40-Year-Old Virgin's a great choice. I'm pumped. Yeah. I wanted to do classic, but a bit different to kind of the era of, or the feeling of the classic movies we've done this year. Yeah. So, I felt like we'd not done a movie like this in a little while. And I think it genuinely is a really interesting, does it hold up conversation. So, looking forward to it. Yeah, I agree. That's a great choice. And I would also say... While you do the details, I'm so desperate to pee, and I thought I could hold it, but I've been desperate for 20 minutes. I'm in exactly the same position, but I'll push through. You go on. I'll do it. I'll get it out of the way. Let's do it. Well, do you want to... Okay, well, we'll both pursue. No, we both need to suffer then. Right. Go on. No. There's literally no need for you to suffer. I'm just saying I wish I had that power. Please go. Okay, well, I'm gonna go pee. Yeah. So, obviously, we're back in. I already gave the date roughly. The V Vendetta one will be out on the 3rd of November. But if the 40-Year-Old Virgin one will be available on iTunes and YouTube and all that stuff on the 27th of October. So that's when we're back, which is, I think, 16-ish weeks from now. So, yeah, good. Oh, no, actually, no, it's way less than that. Wait. It's only, how many weeks is that? That's annoying. It doesn't tell me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 weeks. 12 weeks from now. From the moment you're hearing this, 12 weeks. Obviously, if you want to hear the 4-Year-Old Virgin episode a week earlier than that on the 20th of October, then you can do so by heading over to Patreon, patreon.com/nothingbutstatic, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to episodes of this podcast 1 week before their normal release. Otherwise, you can get us in all the usual places. If you've got thoughts on this, mail at nothingbutstatic. We don't have Twitter or social media really anymore, but you can also comment on the YouTube channel version or post of this podcast. If you've got any thoughts on the Spider-Man movies. Otherwise, of course, you can support us by telling a friend or just continuing to listen. We love you for that. And if you're not enjoying this, cool. No hard feelings. Off you go. Listen to a different podcast. Lots of good ones. I'd recommend many. The Weekly Planet's really good. There you go. There's a podcast you could listen to about nerdy movies and stuff. Although they talk about modern stuff. But it's a good podcast. They have a thing called Caravan of Garbage where they review old movies in shorter form. They'll cover a movie in like 20, 30 minutes. So if you're into this kind of thing, but we're ranting for 3 hours, Caravan of Garbage by Weekly Planet. Otherwise, that's everything for this week. I was going to hand over to Chris, but I've just realised he's not yet back. So I'm...
No, I am back.
Oh, he's back. He's
back.
Just in time. Perfect. All right, let's wrap it up, Chris, because you end this thing. Let's go.
My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Dillon.
And this review has been rewound.